Chapter 1. Birth of a Demon. You're a fool, Irika. Mizuki spat as he stood in front of the wounded Chunin. A demon like Naruto is just going to use that scroll's power to destroy the village. How could you ever even think he was anything close to human, you fool? A short distance away, Naruto was shivering in fear. I have to save Irika-sensei, but how? I haven't even mastered that jutsu from the scroll. Naruto thought back for a moment how everything made sense now. The glares, the taunts and insults, the mobs, the assassination attempts. He was the Kyuubi, a demon, something that would destroy them without a second thought. And yet, if he was a demon, why did he want to protect his sensei? Why did he like people like the Sandaime and Tuchi and his daughter and Hinata? Why? He was the Kyuubi. He shouldn't feel things like this, should he? Then it dawned on him. He wasn't just the Kyuubi. He was also Naruto Uzumaki. He had existed before the Kyuubi was sealed in him. He may be a demon, but he was also a person. It was then that something else dawned on him. All those times he had been injured, all the times he was beaten, stabbed, and stepped on, he had healed faster than any human. Kyuubi was part of him. His power flowed through him. So, why not use that power? I have to save Irika-sensei. I may be the Kyuubi, but I'm Naruto Uzumaki too. Making a ram seal, Naruto cried out in his head to every corner of his mind. All right, Kyuubi. I know you're in there. Give me your power. Not 1 second had he thought those yells. A voice deeper than the sea itself sounded through his head. As you wish, Warden. All right, Irika. I'll just end your suffering and go get that scroll myself, Mizuki yelled as he threw the Fuma Shuriken at the defenseless Chunin. As the weapon hurtled towards him, Irika closed his eyes. Naruto, I'm so sorry. Clang. With a deafening report, the shuriken was split apart into 4 pieces, each slamming into nearby trees. Irika opened his eyes to see who his savior was. Naruto. But it wasn't the Naruto he knew. His hair was darker, more unruly. His fingernails were now claws that must have been diamond hard if they had split the shuriken so easily. His canines were now fangs. The scar-like birthmarks on his cheeks were deeper, more defined, like whiskers. His eyes, once as blue as the sky itself, were now as red as blood, and his pupils were slitted, like a fox. And around him swirled an aura of bright crimson chakra that both Chunin knew all too well. Ha! So the demon finally shows his face. Now I can finally finish what Yondaime started, Mizuki yelled arrogantly. Irika was speechless. Was the Kyuubi breaking free of its prison? And what was going to happen to Naruto? But what shocked him most was what happened next. I may be a demon, Naruto said in low voice that was now much deeper, but I'll never let you hurt my friends. Ha! What can you do? You're just a genin. Naruto smirked darkly. That may be, but I'm also a demon, he said as he brought his hand out in front of him as chakra began swirling around it. A demon that's learned the jutsu of the greatest Hokage who ever lived, he yelled as a crimson maelstrom of chakra formed in his hand. Mizuki stared in shock at what was in Naruto's hand. Teach, that's the... Yes, Naruto said darkly as he brought his hand back and charged Mizuki. Too shocked to move, Mizuki stood there, staring at the boy, wondering how this was possible, until it was too late. Rasengan, Naruto yelled as he slammed the spinning orb of demon chakra into the Chunin. Irika watched in awe and almost fear as the orb entered the man's body. And then Naruto said something that had to be nothing more than a whisper. Boom! Mizuki literally exploded. Charred chunks of flesh and blood flew everywhere, splattering on the trees. Irika lowered the hand he was using to shield his eyes as he looked at his savior. Naruto stood, hunched over, covered head to toe, in Mizuki's blood. Naruto, are you okay? He shakily asked. Naruto turned around and smiled at his sensei. It wasn't a normal smile though, Irika noted. It was a small smile, not like the normal, happy-go-stupid smile that he normally wore. Nor was it the extremely rare smile that Irika had been one of the few people to see. This was a sad smile. One not unlike the one the Sandaime wore when he looked at Naruto sometimes. How was that, Irika-sensei? Irika stared at him for a few seconds, then smiled back. That was great, Naruto. In his office, the Sandaime Hokage looked down into his scrying ball at the scene in the forest. He then looked to the ANBU station by the door. Call off the search. The scroll is safe. Hi, Hokage-sama, the ANBU said as she shun-signed away. Alone in his office, Sarutobi gazed back into the orb to see Irika giving Naruto his headband, saying that he had passed. This brought a sad smile to his face. Minato Kushina, I'm so sorry. Chapter 2. Alteration. Naruto lay in his bed, thoughts running through his head. After giving Naruto his headband, Irika had taken him and the scroll to the Hokage, who had wanted to talk to him. Flashback. Naruto sat in the Hokage's office in front of a large oak desk behind which sat the Hokage himself. Someone Naruto, oddly enough, wasn't completely pissed off at. Naruto, I'm sorry for not telling you about it. I hoped that it would allow you to lead a normal life. I'm sorry for being so naive about the villagers, Sarutobi said in a sad tone. That's okay, Aji-san. I understand why you couldn't, Naruto replied. Thank you, Naruto. But there is something you need to know. Huh? I watched the entire battle through my scrying crystal, from about when Irika found you, the aged Hokage started. Oh, so that's how you knew that I found out. Yes, and I heard what you said about being a demon. Naruto, you're not Kyuubi, you're just his vessel, his prison. You're not the demon. Naruto's face became very solemn and he looked down. Aji-san, that's not entirely true. If I wasn't at least partially the Kyuubi, then how could I use its power? Naruto, the Kyuubi's power has flowed through my veins for my entire life. If it wasn't, then I would be dead from all the beatings I've taken. Sarutobi could only nod. He knew that it was because of Kyuubi that Naruto healed so fast and could survive injuries that would kill a normal person. But are you saying that all of the beatings you've taken are justified? Do you truly believe that you are the demon that attacked this village 12 years ago? No, I never said that I was the Kyuubi. After all, I existed before it was sealed inside me. Kyuubi lives inside me. He is a part of me. His power is my power. If he was removed, then I would die, wouldn't I? Sarutobi was shocked. He was desperately trying to think of a counter, something that could prove Naruto wrong, that he wasn't a demon, that Kyuubi wasn't a part of him. But he couldn't. Naruto was right. Kyuubi was a part of him. He was, at least partially, a demon, though not the one that had attacked them over a decade ago. I understand, Naruto. Go home and get some sleep, the genin assignment are tomorrow. As Naruto left his office, the Sandaime picked up some of the papers he was looking over. I thought Kakashi would be the best choice, but after tonight I think a change is in order. Special ANBU or not, this is the best choice for his sensei. End flashback. As Naruto drifted off to sleep, he thought, I hope I don't get put with the team tomorrow. Naruto slowly opened his eyes to find he was no longer in his bed. He wasn't even in his apartment, and, by the look of the room, he wasn't sure if he was in Konoha anymore. He was standing in a giant room of what looked like some kind of temple. The walls, floor, and ceiling were all made of some kind of grayish-yellow colored stone or metal. The room seemed to be several hundred feet in length and about 100 or so feet wide. The ceiling was a few hundred feet up. The odd thing was the walls. They rose about 50 feet, and then angled inward so the room formed a triangle-like shape. He was standing at the back of the room, on a raised section connected to the floor by two ramps that, as he discovered as he walked down one, a steel plate built into the wall that looked like an elongated hexagon that was similar in shape to the room. There were also 4 white lines going vertically and horizontally in a cross-like shape to a strange kanji or rune in about the lower center. Some of you are probably going 0 to 0 right now. At the other end of the room, he saw another raised platform, only this seemed to be where an altar might be placed. Built into the back of the room, it had stairs reaching all around the ramp that led up to it. As he walked up onto the raised area, he gasped at what was on the back wall. A giant cage. It was as huge. Heck, there was no back wall, just a giant cage. Each of the bars were probably a foot thick and about halfway up. In the middle of it was a piece of paper with the kanji for seal. As he approached it, a pair of massive red eyes stared back at him. Naruto shuddered slightly as he heard that deep voice sound out again. "Hello, Warden. I guess that means you're the Kyuubi then." "Huh?" Naruto answered, not really feeling anything at the moment. "Yes. I am the demon sealed within you, whelp. Where are we? Isn't it obvious? We're inside your mind." "Okay. Why am I here then?" "I brought you here using what little power that accursed seal allows me. I need to tell you something." "Okay, shoot." "Alright, this is pretty complicated, so I'll try to make it simple. To put things bluntly, the seal seems to have been messing with your body. It was designed to slowly feed a small trickle of my chakra into your body, therefore allowing you to use my power without destroying your body. However, to put it simply, it's putting in just enough to screw up your chakra control and physical growth, but not enough to counteract it. That's why your control is so crappy and why you're so short. Though all that ramen probably didn't help either. So what can we do about it?" "There is no we. I can't do anything. The damn seal is designed so I can't alter it. Probably made so I couldn't control you somehow. How do I alter the seal? I'm no good at that stuff. You'll have to find the Shiki Fujin main seal. You see, the only thing that this cage seals is my mind. My power is sealed elsewhere in your mindscape. You'll have to leave this area and travel around your mindscape until you find it. Don't worry, you'll probably be drawn towards it. Once you do, you should be able to alter the seal to allow more of my chakra to be channeled into your body. That should fix the problem since it can't be cut off completely." "Okay. But how do I get out of here?" "You see that metal plate at the other end of room? I think that may be the way out." "Okay," Naruto said as he walked back over to the plate. As he approached it though, something weird happened. The white lines and runes suddenly glowed green and a soft beep sounded from it. It then split apart along the lines and slid into the wall, revealing another room. Now most of you are probably going 0 to 0 right now. "Cool. Okay, I'll get going. See ya, Fuzzy." Naruto walked through the opening. After he had walked a little ways beyond the opening, it closed again. The room beyond it was just as tall and wide, though not near as long. It had a similar raised platform and another door on it, though it was a good deal bigger than the last one. Naruto approached it and it opened. He gasped at the sight that greeted him. He walked out onto a large open area. The entire building was in fact a huge tower made of amber-colored stone, rising hundreds of feet out of a massive lake. For those of you who haven't figured it out, it's basically the building where the Prophet of Regret holes up in Halo 2. I don't own that either. Directly in front of him was some mass of platforms that was connected to the building. For some reason, he was drawn towards it, as if that was the way to go. As he walked onto it, he found a large, room-like area. In front of a window at the front was a flat mass of blue and green lights about 3 feet across and 1 foot long. In its center was a white ring. Almost instinctively, Naruto placed his hand in the center of the ring. Though his hand should have passed through it, it pressed up against it. The lights glowed and Naruto heard a large booming sound as the platform began moving forward. Running to the back of the platform, he saw that he was on what must be some kind of gondola that was taking him away from the tower. What puzzled him was that there weren't any cables or anything obvious that was holding it up. Then he saw it. A large, blue-green stream of light was coming out of the tower and into the gondola. Looking back to the front again, he saw the beam continued on across the lake to where Naruto assumed he was going. The gondola wasn't very fast and it looked to be a couple of miles to the shore, so Naruto had some time to observe the area. There was no shoreline along the lake's edge. There was just a massive cliff of rock that rose up out of the water. Around the lake was what looked like a forest and some mountains. What was interesting was that apart from the tower, the gondola, and the group of structures that he was heading for, there was no sign of any civilization anywhere. As the gondola docked with the other side of the lake, Naruto walked off into a complex of structures that were made of similar material to the tower and gondola he just came from. It appeared to be some kind of temple complex. It seemed to cover several acres and was quite impressive. The buildings were mostly empty, however. As he walked onward, he found something interesting. As he walked through the complex, he found what was probably the center. It was a large temple-like structure, suspended over a large sinkhole by massive struts, and was connected to the other buildings via long bridges. It reminded him of the top half of the Hokage Tower. It's basically the building that you finish the Delta Halo level in, where you kill the honor guards. For some reason he was drawn to this structure, more specifically the roof of the structure, which was a large platform that had something on it that he couldn't quite make out. After walking through the temple, he walked out on the roof and stared at what he saw. It was about 30 feet long and about 10 feet tall. The front of it was shaped similar to a dagger and had what looked like place where one could sit. Above this was a shell of glass that looked like it could lower over the seat area like a protective shell. Further back, it widened slightly and had 4 struts with glowing orbs coming out of it like wings. Think a banshee's wings. At the back were tail-like struts. Basically imagine a combination of a banshee, a hornet, and a sentinel. Drawn towards it, Naruto got into the thing and sat in the small room-like area. Inside was a seat and armrest-like areas. As he put his arms on them, his hands fell on 2 half-orbs. By instinct, Naruto squeezed on them slightly. They glowed and the glass shell lowered over him. The object lurched slightly as the orbs on the struts glowed, and then the thing rose into the air. Naruto looked on in awe. He was flying. He then felt the drawing feeling again, like he was being drawn to something. He realized that this thing could make traveling a lot easier. As he thought of going forward, the machine started flying forward. After a few minutes of practice, he could easily manipulate the machine. As he flew off toward wherever he was being drawn to, he had a chance to admire the scenery. An incredible view greeted him on his journey. Vast forests, trackless deserts, great mountains, endless plains, great plateaus and mesas. All he flew over on his journey. What intrigued him was that any signs of civilization were few and far between. The structures he saw from his vantage point were quite strange. Most were solitary towers with great spires. Think the tower structures you see in the second level of the first game. Other, rarer ones were immense. At one point he found a great multi-leveled building built into the side of the waterfall. It's the cartographer from the third game. Eventually he flew out over a great sea, dotted with several islands. Some had buildings on them, others were barren. Having flown for hours at a speed faster than even the fastest ninja, Naruto realized that this mindscape of his was probably several times bigger than the elemental countries. Finally, he noticed land. The coast spread out in a massive circle and went up into mountains. As he flew over the mountains, he gasped. Inside the crater-like space, the ground went down into a rocky area. Then nothing. There was a massive hole in the ground. He couldn't see through it due to an amber-colored fog that filled the chasm. Directly in front of him was a towering citadel. Looking to his left and right, he could barely make out identical citadels further along the hole. This led him to think that there were several of these structures around the hole. On the whole, imagine the area from the level Covenant from Halo 3 when you get to the Arc Center. The citadel itself was made out of a bronze-brass-golden-colored metal and gleamed the sun, which seemed to be setting. Curious, Naruto flew down around the structure to get a closer look. As he flew around the back, which stretched out over the chasm, he saw a small beam of blue light about a foot in diameter coming into the structure from out of the fog. It was then that he felt the drawing feeling again. It seemed to be drawing him into the fog, along the beam of light. Not wanting to avoid instinct, Naruto followed the beam. The fog was thick, but not thick enough to impede his vision much. After flying for some time, he realized how big this chasm was. All of the elemental countries could probably fit inside it. At last, he flew out of the fog, saw his destination and, for about the 4th time since coming here, gasped. It was essentially a floating island that looked like it was as big as the entire Fire Country. and on it was a structure that Naruto could find only one word to describe: fortress. Its walls were huge, going along the very edge of the chasm. They went up to a height that must have been 4 times the height of the Hokage monument. Past the walls, the main body of the fortress rose up like a mountain. At its lowest point, the outermost part, it wasn't much taller than the wall, but at its center it was probably 5 times taller than the wall. As Naruto flew around it to find a landing spot, he noticed where the beams of light were coming from. On the fortress, at a level right above the wall, were 9 emitters going around the fortress, each shooting out a small blue beam of light. Naruto surmised that those must connected to the citadels along the rim of the chasm. In the very center of the fortress, there was a hole in the roof, flanked by 9 massive struts that went upwards at an angle, then turned 90 degrees and went down slightly. Shooting out of this hole was the tallest thing Naruto had ever seen. A great 4-point spire came out of the hole and towered into the sky. It was easily half again as tall as the fortress itself, which would put it at several miles in height. For a visualization of the whole complex, imagine the library from Halo 2, only with a much bigger version of the Dreadnought, the Forerunner ship that Truth uses in Halo 3, pointing out of the hole in the middle. Taking his eyes away from the towering mass, Naruto saw a platform on the roof of the fortress close to his position that looked like it could be a landing platform. It rose out of normally slightly slanted roof of the mountain of metal into a raised, level platform. He could also see what looked to be a doorway leading into the fortress from it. As he flew towards it, he noticed something interesting. Painted on the platform was a large emblem. It was a grayish-silver in color and resembled a gear with 9 spokes, with the vertical one pointing into a hole in the center. Imagine the 7th column emblem with 2 extra points. He touched down on the platform and entered the monolithic structure. The interior was mainly composed of large, hexagonal-shaped hallways illuminated by dim blue lights from the corners of the floor and ceiling, the area from the control room level of Halo 1. Further in, there were larger, more spacious hallways with walls made of grayish metal. The library in the level Sacred Icon from Halo 2. Though it seemed like a maze, Naruto again seemed to be instinctively drawn down one path. Also, as he walked along, he would occasionally notice more beams of light, no doubt headed for the emitters on the outside. After what seemed like several hours of walking, Naruto found a great chasm, no doubt another defense. He had seen what appeared to be defense turrets dotting the entire complex, and had seen vent-like areas where defenders could be deployed, though he had yet to see any. Also, he had seen many of the odd emblems. Perhaps it was a symbol for this seal? The 9 spokes could certainly be a tribute to what it held. However, he would have no trouble getting across the space, for right in front of him was another gondola, the one you travel on near the end of the level quarantine zone. Activating it the same way, Naruto easily crossed the chasm. After a few more hours, he walked through a door, up a ramp onto a snowy plain, and gasped again. He was on a plain big enough to hold all of Konoha, though most of it was covered by a great mountain. Sitting on top of this mountain, with its 4 massive leg-like struts running down its flanks, was the great spire he had seen from the air. Looking up, he could see the hole from before. About a third of the way up, near the top, was a massive sphere, built into the spire for a visualization. Imagine the control facility from Halo 2 combined with the Dreadnought, only about 5 or 6 miles tall. He was almost there. On the mountain sides, each between each of the spire's legs, were 4 long, pyramid-like structures as tall as the Hokage mountain that jutted out, each with ramps going up them. It's basically the giant pyramid outside the control room in the first game. At the top of the one in front of him, he could make out a massive door. The trek up was long, but eventually he stood before the door. Unlike the others, this did not open as Naruto approached it. Instead, Naruto slowly pressed his hand on the white rune that dotted all of the doors in this place. As he did, the door rumbled and slid open, revealing a massive, long blue and black hallway that sloped upwards at a gradual angle. After walking up it, Naruto found himself in a massive cavern. Looking around, he could see other entrances directly across from him and on the left and right sides of the cavern, from the other entrances he guessed. In the room center was a massive hole in the floor and ceiling. Imagine the room in the library where you start in the said level of Halo 1. As Naruto was contemplating how to move on, he noticed that directly in front of him was a circle cut into the floor. As Naruto stepped into the center of it, it shook slightly and then rose up, drawn by some invisible force. After going through a hole in the ceiling, Naruto was going up a small space at high speed, until eventually he came into a hexagonal-shaped room. In front of him was a doorway that led into a large room. It was massive, like so many other things in his mindscape. It was long and spacious, and had a long bridge connecting it to a platform at the other end. It's the room where you team up with the Flood at the end of the Covenant level. At the end of the bridge was a ramp made seemingly of light that went up to the platform. As Naruto walked onto the platform, he found another circle in the floor. Standing on it, he traveled downward, but not nearly as far as before. He stopped in a room right in front of a massive door. As the door opened, Naruto gaped. He walked into a room about 5 times bigger than the Hokage Tower, along a seemingly floating walkway made of glass. The sides of the room were massive grooves, and the entire room was vaguely hexagonal in shape and had a hole in the middle of the bottom and roof. It's the control room from Halo 1, only a bit bigger. Along the sides of the room were massive struts, folded up against the wall. And in the exact center of the room, floating between the 2 holes, was a massive blood-red crystal the size of the Hokage Tower. Naruto immediately knew what this was. This was the power of Kyuubi. It looked like a double-ended diamond with 9 sides on each end. Along the walls of the room were 4 light crimson beams of light that came out and connected to the crystal. Naruto surmised that this was the power that the seal was always drawing from Kyuubi's power in his body. Then all of those other beams must be the power going into my body. So then this fortress must have been the Shiki Fujin. As reached the end of the walkway, which extended about halfway to the crystal, he found what must have been a control panel. It was like the others he had seen on the gondolas and some doors, though it was much larger and had multiple runes on it. In its center was the gear-like symbol again. Naruto reached out his hand and pressed the symbol. It glowed, and immediately, several floating screens popped up in front of him, displaying various bits information. For some reason, Naruto was able to understand it all. He could understand what he was seeing and understood how to alter the seal. This control panel must have been put in here for this exact reason. He just had to increase the power output into his body. Another plus of this seemed to be that he would be able to handle more of Kyuubi's power faster. Apparently, the default power had been about 0.001 of Kyuubi's power. From what he could see, he'd probably be able to handle all of Kyuubi's power from by the time he was about 40 or 50 years old. With an increase to the power output, this time frame could be shortened from 40 years to about 15 to 20. Naruto imputed this into the control panel for a default power increase from 0.001 to 0.05. The panel glowed as the command was inputted. The emitters on the wall glowed as the new order was carried out. The beams of light widened and turned a darker crimson. The entire facility seemed to change slightly. The beams throughout the fortress widened and turned a bit darker as the filtering process of the chakra was hampered slightly. The lights seemed to brighten, and outside the fortress, the energy beams leading to his body widened considerably. But Naruto couldn't see all of this. Naruto looked around as he suddenly felt better. There were no words to describe it. He simply felt better, as if his body had become better than it was before. Then something occurred to him. If he was done, then how was he supposed to get out of here? As if on cue, a blue beam of light shone down behind him. Not having any other options, Naruto walked into it, closed his eyes, and then, for a lack of a better term, woke up. Naruto slowly opened his eyes. He was back in his apartment, in his bed, and it was morning. Was all that just a dream? No, it wasn't. He still had that better feeling. Whatever he had done to the seal, it had done what he wanted it to. He got out of bed, his feet strangely hitting the floor before they normally did. Walking into his room, Naruto looked in the mirror and his eyes widened at the sight that greeted him. His hair was wilder, shaggier. His ears were elongated slightly. His whisker marks were wider, more like scars. His canines were longer, almost fangs. And his eyes, though still blue, had slits going down them like a fox. He was also taller by a few inches. Looking down at his hands, he found that his fingernails were now pointed, more like claws than anything else. It was as if he had gone through a Kyuubi-induced growth spurt while he was asleep. Like the changes kit. Kyuubi, what the heck happened? I look like a completely different person. Did that small increase do that much? Yep. The amount of chakra being induced into your body in roughly the same as the amount you had when you killed the Mizuki guy. You'll find that basically everything about you has been augmented. Your body, your senses, even your mind. Naruto realized that Kyuubi was right. He could see well enough to make out the individual cracks in the mirror. He could clearly hear the birds chirping outside even though he had the window closed. He could feel the individual fibers on his pants. And above everything else, he felt smarter. He could actually form a sentence with word longer than ramen. He wasn't as smart as Shikamaru, but he defiantly was smarter than most other people in his class. With that thought, he realized he had to get to the academy. He quickly put on some clothes, though he left top half of the orange jumpsuit, instead opting for a normal black t-shirt. He also put on a henge to mask his new appearance and rushed out the door. This is amazing! Naruto was flying along faster than he had ever run before. Kyuubi's chakra had made him much faster than before. He also seemed to be unconsciously focusing chakra to his legs so he could run even faster. This puzzled him. In the academy, he hadn't had the chakra control to create a single bunshin, and now he was focusing it without even thinking about it. Kyuubi seemed to sense this and answered his question. It's another bonus of my power. Your chakra control is so good that trivial stuff like this is so natural you do it unconsciously. You could probably do that Rasengan like it was second nature. Naruto nodded at this. He had been able to easily do that henge, something he had always had trouble with. He was broken from his musings as he arrived at the academy. Naruto walked through the door to the room where the graduates were supposed to gather. He looked over the room, deciding where he was going to sit. Let's see. It's either next to Sasuke team or Hinata. If I sit next to Sasuke, then I'll to put up with Sakura and Ino fighting over him, and if I sit next to Hinata, is there even a downside to sitting next her? Okay, Hinata it is. Hinata Hyuga was not exactly happy at the moment. First, Naruto-kun wasn't able to pass yesterday. Then her father berated her for not being top of the class. Then her sister beat her in a sparring match. Again. She was broken from her musings when a voice she thought she'd never hear again spoke up beside her. Hey Hinata-chan, how's it going? Hinata looked up in shock at the boy she secretly loved. Na Naruto-kun. How did? Hey! Naruto Shikamaru spoke up from the other side of Hinata. This is only for people who graduated. Why are you here? He asked, not arrogant like Sasuke or Kiba, but simply curious. Smirking, Naruto tapped the forehead protector around his neck. Let's just say I did some extra credit work and Irika-sensei passed me. What kind of extra credit exactly? The lazy Nara asked. Well, if we get put on the same team, then maybe I'll tell you, Naruto retorted. Shikamaru just shrugged at this while Hinata turned a bit red at the thought of being put on the same team as Naruto while the object of her affection remained blissfully unaware. Meanwhile, the two banshees burst in the door and began the daily struggle for the seat next to Sasuke while everyone else tuned them out. Naruto decided to take a page out of Shikamaru's book and decided to sleep some. Right as he was about to doze off, Irika calmly strode in, walked up to the teacher's desk and set some papers on it. He then calmly glanced around the room, taking in the students, all oblivious, drew in a deep breath and then, "Shut up!" He yelled as his head grew to enormous size, the product of his signature technique, the big-headed teacher jutsu. This immediately sent everyone to their seats and shut their mouths. All right, I congratulate all of you on graduating, he began. Naruto tuned Irika out as he went into some speech on Konoha or something until the team assignments came up. Naruto tuned most of them out until Team 7, Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto knew that at this point, a good number of girls in the room were probably calling Satan to sell their souls. Sakura Haruno. Apparently Sakura was the first one to reach the Prince of Darkness. And Kiba Inuzuka, Your sensei will be Kakashi Hatake. Naruto briefly entertained the idea that Kiba had called to get put on that team, but that notion was quickly thrown away as he was beaten up by the rest of Sasuke's fan club. Team 8, Shikamaru Nara. Naruto Uzumaki. Looks like Shikamaru's going to find out my secret after all. And Hinata Hyuga, your sensei will be. Chapter 3. Teacher. Just as Iruka was about to call out their sensei, Naruto's enhanced vision picked up something. Hit the deck. Just as the words left Naruto's mouth, everyone dived under the nearest desk as a black object smashed through the window. The object turned out to be a large ball of black fabric which instantly split open and the corners were pinned to the floor and ceiling by kunais. In the center of the fabric were the large white words, Anko Mitarashi is here, said psychopathic Jounin was standing in front of it, wearing a grin that many found eerily similar to the one of a certain orange wearing blonde. All right, maggots. Team 8. I'm your new sensei and… Anko, Iruka said as he pushed the fabric aside. You're a little early. Anko immediately looked a bit embarrassed at her bad timing. However, she shrugged it off. Well, you called him out, right? Iruka nodded. A light. Then we don't have a problem. Team 8, follow me. Being the first to recover, Shikamaru merely spoke to his new teammates. Well, at least we won't be bored. The genin were in too much shock to object and just obediently followed her to the roof. As the genin sat down on the roof of the academy, their sensei eyed them from her perch on the railing. Remember, Kakashi's not going to be there for another 3 or 4 hours. Okay, let's get started with some introductions. I'm Anko Mitarashi. My likes are dango, training, and torturing. My dislikes are a certain snake and some of the more ungrateful people in Fine Village. This immediately piqued Naruto's interest. My goal in life is to find said snake, rip his tongue out, hang him with it, draw and quarter him with a rusty kunai and feed him to his own pets. It was then she noticed that her new charges were now looking at her like she was a complete psychopath. She put on her trademark grin and scratched the back of her head. Sorry about that. I guess I went a little too far. Just forget I said that last part. Let's just say I want to disprove a few misconceptions some villagers have about me. Blondie, you're next. While Hinata and Shikamaru were still a little confused, Naruto knew exactly what she was talking about. I think I'm going to get along with her just fine. Okay, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. My likes are ramen, training, and more training. My dislikes are the 3 minutes it takes to cook ramen and most of the more idiotic and ungrateful people in our village. My dream. Naruto didn't exactly know what to say. Just yesterday he would have shouted out that he wanted to be Hokage. But now he wasn't so sure. My dream is to make this village see just who I am. One way or another. Shikamaru and Hinata looked at him with shocked faces. What the? I thought he was going to spout some crap about becoming Hokage like he always does. Something is definitely up with him. Naruto-kun. What happened to you? Meanwhile, Anko was smirking at the boy. Oh yeah, kid. We are going to get along just fine. Okay, lazy, you're up, Anko said, pointing at Shikamaru. Sigh, fine. Name's Shikamaru Nara. I like cloud watching and that's about it. I don't like overly loud or annoying, whiny people. No dreams to speak of. Same lazy shirker as always. Geez, lazy as the rest of his clan. Oh well, guess I'll just have to whip him into shape. Alright, White Eyes, you're up last. Hinata was a bit startled by the nickname. Nobody had ever been crazy enough to call a Hyuga something like that. Even so, she began. My name is Hinata Hyuga. My likes are, training and some other stuff, she said as she stole a quick glance at Naruto, which he missed or so she thought. I really don't like that much. I don't really have a dream, though at this her cheeks turned slightly red and she glanced at Naruto again. Dense as always, Naruto. You've known her for 5 years and are still oblivious? Troublesome. Okay, I've got a lazy, but smart as hell Nara, a shy but promising Hyuga, and the village Junshiriki. Well, Kakashi, this bet's as good as one. Flashback. 2 hours earlier. Kakashi and Anko were walking down the halls of the Hokage Tower, having just been assigned their teams. I can't believe Hokage-sama would drop Kurenai out for you of all people. I hardly think you're fit to be Jounin-sensei, Kakashi said lazily with his nose in that perverted book of his. Ha! I show you that I can teach any brats they give me. In fact, I'll bet I can make M into the most kick-ass genin team since the Sannin, was Anko's boisterous reply, making Kakashi raise an eyebrow. Okay, how about we make it a bet, Anko, Kakashi replied. I'm listening. All right, if even one of your genin doesn't pass the next Chunin exams, you have to ask Guy. At this, Anko began to pale. Out on a date, Anko became very pale. At the following Jounin meeting, Anko was now as pale as her ex-sensei. This Kakashi smirked at. Anko, however, quickly regained her composure and adopted her trademark sadistic grin that made Kakashi a tad uncomfortable. Okay, but if they all pass the exam, you have to give me. Kakashi began to ponder what she could be talking about, and paled as he chanced to guess. Every single one of your perverted books. Kakashi became as pale as Anko had just been. For an entire year. And you can't buy any more until the year is up. Kakashi was now as pale as if he were about to have his groin obliterated via Raikiri. This made Anko grin even more, making the famous or infamous Kakashi Hitaki squirm like that was priceless. But eventually Kakashi regained his composure, though Anko noticed he was holding that book of his a bit tighter than before. Okay, you're on. End flashback. Anko surveyed her new charges again. It wasn't going to be easy, but she could definitely pull this off. Okay, Gakis, now that we're all acquainted, let's talk about your real genin test. We already took the genin test, sensei, Naruto started, but before he could continue, the Jounin cut him off. That test was only meant to see if you had the skills to become genin. The real test to see whether you're worthy to be ninja is up to us Jounin. Your test will be tomorrow morning. Be at training area 44 at 6 a.m. Oh, and one more thing. This test has a 66.6 failure rate. Of all of the kids that passed, only about 9 will be ninja by tomorrow evening. How about you make sure that you Gakis are among them? The 3 prospective genin paled at this. That's all for today, see you tomorrow. Hinata and Shikamaru got up and left. Naruto was about to do the same when his sensei spoke up. Hey Naruto, I need to talk to you about something. Naruto turned around to see that Anko had left her perch on the railing and was now standing about 5 feet away from him. What is it, Anko-sensei? Said Jounin looked past him for a moment as if she was checking something. Apparently satisfied, she turned her attention back to him. Okay, now that the others are gone, how about you drop that henge? Naruto's eyes widened at this, though he should have expected this. After all, she was a Jounin. It has something to do with what happened last night, doesn't it? His new sensei began, having adopted a much caring attitude than before. Naruto's eyes widened further. Anko elaborated. Hokage-sama filled me in when he briefed me on this team. In fact, it's because of what happened last night that I'm your sensei. Don't worry, I don't really give a shit if you happen to look like a demon. I know you're not one, at least not the one we're familiar with. Naruto calmed down. If she was referring to him like that, then the old man must have told her. Okay, he said as he made a seal, and with a poof of smoke the henge was gone, revealing his new features. However, of all the reactions Naruto had expected, this was not one of them. Man, that looks badass, Anko whistled, clearly impressed. Naruto just sweat dropped. I can see why you had that henge on. If you went around looking like that, there'd be riots all over Konoha. But Hokage-sama didn't tell me about this. What happened last night after you left the tower? Naruto smiled a little at this, but there was something else. Can we talk somewhere else? I'd rather not anyone else hear this. Sure, Anko said as she put a hand on his shoulder and they teleported away. In his office, the Sandaime Hokage looked on through his crystal ball and smiled. I knew that picking her was the right choice. Naruto and Anko reappeared on the top of the Hokage monument. So, Anko said as they sat down, what had happened last night? Well, Naruto began. It all started when I failed the academy test. And so Naruto gave Anko a complete synopsis of what happened from the day before, to write when he got to the academy. He told her everything from learning the Rasengan and killing Mizuki, to the revelation about the truth of the seal and his changes. About 5 hours later, Anko and Naruto were still sitting on the monument as Naruto finished his narration. Wow, Anko said as he finished his story. You are one hell of a kid, Naruto. A mere genin mastering the Rasengan in only a few hours? Even with Kyuubi's help? That is incredible. Yeah, I could hardly believe is either when I first used it. By the way, I think we should tell Aji-san about this, Naruto said. Nah. He's probably been watching us the whole time with that crystal ball of his. In his office, the old Hokage sneezed as he looked through the crystal. Okay, Anko. Let's see if your other idea works. Naruto, do you know why I was chosen to be your sensei? Well, I guess you aren't exactly very popular among the villagers, was Naruto's reply. That's like saying that you lived an uncomfortable childhood kid. Naruto began listening intently. You know who was my sensei, kid? No. Who was it? A guy by the name of Orochimaru. I'm betting you've heard of him. At this, Naruto's eyes widened. The snake Sannin? Yeah, I was an orphan like you. Shortly after I became a genin, Orochimaru took me in as his apprentice. He was great. He treated me like I was his own daughter. He taught me how to be a ninja. I was so happy. Then, Naruto noticed that Anko's fists became clenched and her face turned to a scowl. He betrayed me. A few years after he took me in, he started doing those experiments. He abducted people from the village, genin, chunin, even jounin, and I helped him. I admired him so much, I couldn't even think of going against him. I watched him experiment on people until they weren't even human or dead. Then, he started on me. Anko reached behind her head and pulled down the high collar on her trench coat and motioned for Naruto to look at her neck. As he looked over, he saw a small tattoo on the back of her neck. It looked like 3 black tomos in a spiral formation. What is that? It's what makes me the most like you. It's called the curse seal. Orochimaru developed it for controlling his servants and making them very powerful. And I was his guinea pig for it. Naruto's eyes widened again. He used you? His own apprentice. Anko's face became very solemn. Yeah, he did. He doesn't care about anyone else in this world. Not even his own subordinates. Everyone is just something to be used to increases his own power. The only person he cares about in this world is himself. After experimenting on me for a while, his secret got out and he fled. But not before wiping my memory. I was found shortly after he fled the village in Ocean Country. Hokage-sama and the ANBU did their best to help me remember, but it was all in vain. All I could remember was his betrayal. And that's not the worst of it. As you know, Orochimaru is hated like the plague now. Everyone knew that I was his apprentice and how loyal I was to him. Now don't get me wrong, the minute I remembered his betrayal, I developed a hatred for him that some consider fanatical. All of the Jounin and ANBU knew this and knew I had no more loyalty to him. But most of the rest of the village, especially most of the civilians, weren't as understanding. Naruto nodded in understanding. He could tell where this was going. For several years after, I was ridiculed and hated by the rest of the village. Beatings, shopkeepers denying service, insults, taunts, angry mobs, even a few assassination attempts. You probably know it all too well. That's mainly why I became a special Jounin and why I wear this mask of sadism. It's because now most are too scared to come after me with anything more than taunts or insults. And even then, I've struck out against even those. But even then, I still get glares and avoidance. And there are also quite a few members of that damned council who want me dead. Naruto nodded at this. Quite a few members of the Council of Konoha had had him marked for assassination since practically the day he was born. The only thing keeping them from having him executed was the old man and the Yandame's final wish. That's why I want to kill Orochimaru. To prove that I'm not loyal to him. To prove that my loyalty to him died the day he betrayed me. That's why Hokage-sama wanted me to be your sensei. He thought that the only one in this village who could understand your pain was me. Naruto nodded in understanding and gratitude. Understanding to Anko and gratitude to the old man. But there was something else. Anko-sensei, I know you haven't told me your life story to me for no reason. What's the real reason you told me all this? Anko smirked at this. Hey, you're pretty good at reading people, kid. Yeah, there is a reason. When Hokage-sama first told me about you, he mentioned the crappy living conditions you've had to put up with. I have a proposition for you. How would you like move in with me? I have a really nice place, and it's a ways out from the village. So what do you say? Frankly, Naruto was speechless. She was asking him if he wanted to move in with her? This kind of kindness and caring was completely alien to him. Then he realized that she was waiting for an answer, and he did hate that shitty apartment. Sure, he answered with a smile. Anko adopted a similar grin. Great. I already talked to Hokage-sama about this, so he'll get the paperwork out of the way. So let's go get whatever you want from that apartment and head to my place. Naruto nodded as Anko put her hand on his shoulder and they poofed to his apartment. Naruto didn't exactly take much. Just some pictures. He was going to take his spare clothes, but Anko stopped him. We'll get you some new clothes on the way to my place. Don't worry. I know this is all they'll sell you. And I know a few people who'll sell me stuff regardless of who it's for. Nodding, Naruto put the few things he kept in his pocket and the two left. They later went by a shinobi clothing and weapons store, and the shopkeeper, while a little apprehensive at first, sold the two some quality clothes for him. Naruto's new wardrobe consisted of black shinobi boots with a crimson line going up the left and right side, respectively. They also each had a hidden holster for a kunai. These led into a pair of black ANBU pants with similar crimson lines going from the lines on his boots up along the legs. The pants included quite a few pouches for shinobi equipment. On his torso was a shirt of chainmail over which was a crimson shirt with two black lines going down it. Imagine the upper half of his Shippuden outfit only with crimson instead of orange. He also wore black fingerless gloves usually worn by jounin. His headband now had black fabric and hung around his neck. Completing the ensemble was a long, hooded crimson trench coat that went down to just above his boots. It had a large hood that could conceal his face quite well and black flames along the bottom and wisps of black flame going up the rest of the coat. The most curious thing about it, Anko thought, was the emblem that Naruto asked to be put in the center of the coat's back. It was of a silver gear-like symbol with 9 spokes, with the uppermost one going into the center. As they left the shop, Naruto answered her question. I found it in seal a lot. I think it may be a symbol for the seal. Either way, it looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Anko nodded. The 9 spokes were certainly symbolic. Naruto gaped. This was where he was going to be living. A giant forest filled with Kami knows what? Anko smirked at his surprise. Don't worry. I live in a tower in the center. This is where they host the second part of the Chunin exams. Training Area 44, also known as the Forest of Death. Don't look like that. I know a way that'll get us through without much trouble. She chuckled at Naruto's grumbling about sadistic jounin. Naruto whistled at the sight. He could definitely get used to living like this. The tower was huge. Anko noticed his reaction. Impressive, isn't it? This is what getting feared gets you. Isolation and everything you need so you won't come out looking for it. Nice, huh? Naruto nodded. He was definitely going to enjoy living here. Most of the tower was just empty barracks. Anko's actual rooms were at the top. She still had a pretty big place. The topmost 2 stories, actually. As they rode the elevator up, Naruto spoke. Hey, Anko-sensei, why is this tower here? And why do you have this apartment? I highly doubt it was just put in by Aji-san. Yeah, you're right. This tower was originally built as a special training area for ANBU, but they never used it. So, soon after it was built, Jiraiya, the Gama-sanin, and his apprentice moved in and made the forest their personnel training area. They even later built a secret training area under the tower. I spent a lot of time here with those two when I was Orochimaru's apprentice. Most of my training under Orochimaru was spent in this forest. You knew the Yondaime? Naruto asked, a bit shocked. Well, we were both apprentices of the Sannin, so you can imagine that we met quite a few times. After Orochimaru betrayed the village and Minato became the Yondaime, he gave me the apartment that he lived in while training under Jiraiya. The forest started being used in the Chunin exams, and I've been living here ever since. Anko's apartment consisted of a kitchen, 2 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, an armory with some weapons Naruto had never even heard of before, a study with an impressive library, and a den with a large couch and a large flat-screen TV, as well as a pretty extensive entertainment center. As they walked down a hall on the 2nd floor of the apartment, Anko suddenly stopped and flipped what appeared to be a light switch of some kind. As she flipped the switch, a rectangular part of the ceiling that had a ladder on it lowered down, revealing a trapdoor at the top. What's up there? The attic? Naruto asked. Nope. Your room, Anko answered, pointing up to the trapdoor. Not sure what to expect, Naruto climbed the ladder and opened a trapdoor to find himself in a medium-sized bedroom that was actually about as big as Naruto's old apartment. It was pretty tall at the back end with a ceiling with a 45-degree slant that Naruto noticed was right beneath the tower's slanted roof. The ceiling also boasted an impressive skylight covering about half of it with a small hatch that would allow someone to climb through. The room also had a desk at one end and the bed at the other, with several shelves on the wall next to it and a few drawers under it. Something that Naruto noticed was that there were 4 switches on the wall next to the bed. Flipping one of them, he found it turned on the lights, obviously. The second caused a large tarp-like object to come over the skylight, blocking the view. After he flipped that switch back, he flipped the third one. This one caused the skylight to slide back onto the rest of the roof. The 4th switch did something Naruto was not expecting. Several pieces of the wall flipped around, revealing several racks of kunai, shuriken, and other ninja tools and weapons. Naruto let out a low whistle at this. Anko chuckled at his reaction as she climbed through the hole. Yeah, Minato always had a thing for weapons. Sorry, no Hiroshin kunais though. Wait a minute, Naruto said, shocked. This was his room? Yep, was Minato's room when he was living here. I thought you should have it since, well, he was my father? Now it was Anko's turn to gape in shock. How did you? It was a guess, really. The first time I saw a picture of him in the old man's office, I always thought we looked similar. I guess I kind of entertained the idea that I could be the son of the village's greatest hero. I never told anyone, of course. I was already hated enough. I didn't want people thinking I was insulting his memory or anything like that. But when I found out about Kyuubi, it started to make sense that I'd be his son. I mean, what better gift could you leave your child than such a power like Kyuubi's? Naruto answered. But he was the one that cursed you. Shouldn't you at least feel some resentment towards him? I mean, it is kind of his fault you're so hated, Anko said. Well, I guess you might think that at first. But if you think about it, the situation he was in wasn't so different than mine. He was the only one that could seal Kyuubi, and he would have to seal in someone, so why not his own son? He didn't have any more of a choice than I did. It was the villagers that had a choice. The only people that can be blamed for my treatment by the village is the village itself, Naruto explained. Anko was speechless. She thought that he would see Minato like she saw Orochimaru, someone who had abandoned him with a curse that had made their life miserable. But now that she thought about it, while the curses that they bore were very similar, the conditions under which they were cursed couldn't be more different. With her, a person that she admired and perhaps even loved like a father had used her like a lab rat and left her with a cursed power that could completely destroy her. Naruto, on the other hand, was given a power by someone who was family, who had probably given him that power to keep him safe. But they did have one other thing in common. In both their cases, the village had a choice on how to treat them, and they chose to hate them. If there was anyone to blame for their misery, it was the village. Well, I guess you got a point there, Anko replied. Hey Anko-sensei, can you show that secret training area you told me about? Sorry kid, but I think it's kind of late for that, she answered, pointing at the clock next to the bed. It read 8:45. You don't want to be tired if you want to pass tomorrow's test, right? She continued as she started to climb down the ladder. Yeah, I suppose you're right, Naruto answered. See you tomorrow? Naruto opened his eyes to find he was in his mindscape, more specifically, on the temple where he had found that aircraft, as he had decided to call it. Speaking of said machine, it was sitting right where he had found it before. This confused him a little. What the heck? Didn't I leave that thing on the seal? He asked to no one in particular. However, something decided to answer. Since you woke up here, the craft was returned here, a deep, monotonous voice said. Spinning around, Naruto found a tall man with black hair who looked to be in about his mid to late 40s. He was garbed in all black and wore a long, ragged trench coat that seemed to flutter in a supernatural wind. On his head, he wore a pair of red-tinted goggles that disappeared into his hair that also seemed to flutter slightly. Standing up, Naruto looked at the stranger. All right, who are you and how are you in my mindscape? Isn't it obvious? Who's the only other being in here, Warden? The man answered. Realization and fear dawned on Naruto. Kyuubi? How did you escape? I did not escape, the man/demon answered. Remember, my actual power is sealed in the central complex. The seal allows my mind to roam your mindscape as long as I enter a human form. The only places off limits are the central complex, of course. And that, he continued, pointing at the machine behind Naruto. Why not that thing? If the main seal is off limits anyway, then why does it not allow you in that? Naruto asked. Get in and fly upwards. I'll guide you. The seal allows me to communicate with you inside it, Kyuubi answered. Okay, Naruto said as he walked over to the craft. Before he got to it, however, he turned to Kyuubi. Hey Kyuubi, is there any way I can make this thing look any different? Or make into something that goes faster? He asked. Yes, I'd assume you simply concentrate and it'll change. But don't try it on much else in here. Most of the things in here can't be changed. That's how a mindscape works, the demon answered. Nodding, Naruto turned back to the craft, closed his eyes and concentrated on an appearance that he wanted. When he opened his eyes after a few minutes, he smirked at what stood before him. The craft had changed drastically. It was now black and about 30 feet long and resembled a bird. It had 2 long wings coming out of its sides to about 20 feet on either side. It stood on 4 struts/skids that came out of the wings and body. Coming out of the underside of the main body was a ramp that led into the craft. It's basically a longsword fighter. For those of you who don't know, it's the starfighter that the humans use in Halo, and the ship you escape on at the end of the first game. Entering the vehicle, Naruto found it much more spacious than the last one. At the front of the cabin was a chair with a control console in front of several windows for visibility. Next to the chair was a small pedestal that Naruto could think of no use for. Sitting in the chair, Naruto placed his hands on the familiar control console. As the craft rumbled to life, Naruto looked out one of the windows to see Kyuubi nod to him. As the vehicle lifted off the ground and the struts retracted into its body, Naruto turned it upwards and with a blast from its boosters, was gone in a second. The acceleration knocked Naruto back a little into his seat. This was a lot faster than before. After flying upwards for a while, Naruto stopped the craft, turned it around, and gasped once again at the sheer size of his mindscape. He had grossly misjudged how big this place was. His mindscape actually seemed to be a giant construct floating in what seemed to be a great black void. From the great hole in the center, 9 great petals stretched out like a great flower. Each petal had to be hundreds, no thousands of kilometers long. Each sloped upwards at the gentle angle until they were roughly at about a 60-degree angle. Incredible, isn't it? Naruto looked over to the pedestal to see a mini Kyuubi projected in 3D in light from it. The hole in the center measures 10,000 miles in diameter. At their widest points, the petals measure 20,000 miles and are 70,000 miles in length at their longest points. At its thickest point, around the hole in the center, your mindscape is 1,000 miles thick. The central seal is 2,000 miles across, Kyuubi explained. Naruto was gaping at these numbers. He hadn't grossly misjudged the size. He had mistaken a mountain for a tree. Kyuubi seemed to sense his shock. I know. My reaction was similar when I first learned that. It never ceases to amaze me just how big this place is. You should be proud. To my knowledge, most mindscapes are probably a few miles across at most. This one is over 100,000 inch. Naruto was still trying to take all of this in when Kyuubi spoke again. If you wanted to see what I was referring to before, look to the center. Remembering what he came up here to do, Naruto looked to his left, towards the center of his mindscape, and gasped once again. Floating high above the hole in the center was a giant ring slowly rotating, suspended by some invisible force. Only the outside, made of some strange metal, was visible. On it was an array of strange symbols and carvings. Touring the craft towards the construct, Naruto flew towards it. As he approached, he saw what was on the inside of the ring. Stretching across the ring was a landscape similar to the rest of his mindscape. Great oceans, trackless deserts, and rolling plains. Something that puzzled him, however, as he flew towards it was how the water on the ring was suspended when the inside of the ring was basically perpendicular to the rest of his mindscape. Kyuubi seemed to sense this and answered his question. I suspect the ring generates its own gravity. I suggest you be careful when you get close so you don't lose control. As Naruto flew towards the inside of the ring, he angled the craft upwards, and, true to Kyuubi's suspicions, as soon as he was inside the ring, gravity seemed to shift 90 degrees. Surprised a little, Naruto decided to practice on passing into and out of this gravity field a few times to get his bearings. As he flew across the landscape on the ring, he spoke Bijou. Nay, Kyuubi, why is this ring here? And why are you not supposed to get here? Well, to put it simply, this ring is a portal to the real world. What's that supposed to mean? Naruto asked, more confused than shocked. Well, from what I've been able to figure out, this ring serves several purposes. Its main purpose is to allow you to use our Yuki without entering a demonic form. For example, suppose you wanted to perform a jutsu that consumed a more chakra than you had at the moment and you didn't want to enter your demonic state. If you wanted to do that, then the main seal complex would fire a blast of Yuki equal to that of what you needed through the large spire. It would travel upward, and this ring would project a portal that would allow the Yuki to be channeled directly right into the jutsu, you follow? Kyuubi explained. Kind of, Naruto answered. But how does that differ from when I enter that demonic form, like when I killed Mizuki? Nodding, Kyuubi answered. When you enter that demon form, the seal channels a massive amount of Yuki into the mindscape itself. You see, this mindscape represents your body, or the link to your body. That's why a small amount of Yuki is always being channeled from the seal into the rest of your mindscape. While entering demon form is useful when you want a major power boost, it's not practical if you want to enter it just to perform a specific jutsu. I suspect this is the main reason this ring was added. Wait, you said it was the main reason. What are the other things this ring can do? Naruto asked. The other ability of this ring is the main reason I am not allowed near it. It allows you to bring other people into your mindscape, or transfer a blast of purified Yuki into the chakra coils of another person. As you can imagine, I could probably use that to escape in some form, which is why I can't enter that craft. In truth, that's why the main seal is floating in the middle of a giant chasm and the ring is floating 10,000 miles above the surface of your mindscape. It's to signify the barrier keeping me from freedom and my former power. Or at least that's what I think. Naruto nodded to the demon. Then something occurred to him. Oi, Kyuubi, how do I go back to regular sleep? I'm going to need to get some rest for Anko-sensei's test tomorrow. Kyuubi chuckled a little. This place only exists in your mind. Your body is getting as much rest as you normally would. Also, you have complete control over how much time passes in here in relation to the real world. A day in here can translate to a second in the real world. But to answer your question, just land somewhere and think of returning or something and you will. Deciding to follow the demon's advice, Naruto quickly found a spot to land on the ring and concentrated on returning to his body. Not 2 seconds after he started, he promptly woke up. Next day. 0558 hours. Outside of training field 44 aka Forest of Death. Shikamaru stood gaping a little in awe and fear at the forest. This place was huge. This is where we're taking the exam? Troublesome. Taking his mind off of his possibly impending doom, the young Nara looked over to his teammate. Contrary to what some might think, Shikamaru was actually the first to get to the training area at about 5 a.m. Hinata got there about 15 minutes later. Now where was Naruto? Considering how much effort into becoming a ninja, Shika was expecting him to be the first one there. Now they only had about a minute left and he was still nowhere to be found. Hinata had a look of worry on her face, wondering what happened to the boy she loved. Where is he? Something must have happened to him if he's this late. Maybe I should be worried too. If he doesn't show, then we'll probably all be failed. Troublesome blondes. The shirkers' unease and the heiress's worry was suddenly replaced with surprise when they heard something land on the chain-link fence behind them, and then to shock as they saw who it was. Standing on the fence was Naruto. This was not the Naruto they knew though. In the place of the hideous orange jumpsuit he had been wearing was something that was practically its polar opposite. Naruto was wearing something akin to a customized ANBU uniform along with a crimson trench coat with black flame designs. His headband now had black fabric instead of blue and was around his neck. His hair also seemed to be wilder looking, though Shikamaru attributed that to it not being held back by anything. He was also wearing that same grin he usually did, though it seemed different, more feral somehow. And were his canines always that long? Whatever changes Naruto went through, Shikamaru could tell they defiantly weren't negative. Hinata's reaction was similar, though not entirely. She was actually trying desperately not to faint from this. She had always thought Naruto was handsome. It was one of the reasons she was attracted to him. But like everyone else, she hated that orange jumpsuit. However, unlike everyone else at the academy, Hinata knew that that jumpsuit was all he had. Now, however, part of her was wishing he was still wearing that hideous thing. Now he looked so badass she had trouble not fainting. The only thing keeping her conscious was the drive to prove her self-control. Both were broken from their musings as Naruto jumped to the ground and, not a second later, their sensei appeared in behind Hinata and Shikamaru. Yo! The three prospective genin and their prospective sensei stood in a clearing in the forest, the former at one end of the clearing facing the latter at the other end. Alright Gakis, here's how the test is going to work, Anko began as she pulled 3 bells out of her ninja pouch. Your objective is to each get a bell from me. Whoever gets a bell passes. If you don't get a bell, you get sent back to the academy. You can use anything in your arsenal. Weapons, jutsus, secret techniques, clan techniques, bloodlines, demon powers. What was that last one? Shikamaru asked, confused. Bloodlines? Damn, almost let that one slip, Anko answered /thought. Shikamaru and Hinata still looked confused while Naruto just rolled his eyes in exasperation. Still, he thought to himself, that's basically an open invitation to use my demon powers. I wonder if she wants to see them firsthand. You have 3 hours to get the bells, Anko said as she attached the bells to her belt and took out a large timer. This timer is set to go off in 3 hours. If you muck with it, you fail, Anko continued as she placed the timer on a stump at the edge of the clearing and placed her finger on the start button. You may begin now, she yelled as she hit the button. Hinata and Shikamaru leapt into the bushes and trees. Anko watched them with some satisfaction. Then she noticed Naruto hadn't moved an inch. You're an odd one, you know that? She said to the blonde. No odder than you, he retorted. Besides, I just wanted to try out my latest jutsu, Naruto continued as he pulled out a kunai. Alright, Anko replied as she did the same, Bring it! Naruto smirked as he started to step forward, then vanished. Anko's eyes went wide as she felt something fly past her. She spun around as fast as she could just in time to intercept Naruto and his kunai right before he cut off the bells. What the hell was that? Anko asked, shocked. Naruto simply smirked and vanished again. Anko looked up to find him on a tree branch high above the ground. Wouldn't you like to know? Naruto retorted before vanishing again. Even though she could barely see him move, Anko could tell he was gone, probably to find his teammates so they could mount a coordinated assault. This gave her time to muse over that technique. Whatever that thing was, it's not like Shunshin. It uses pure speed. I could feel him rush past me before, which means he probably bounced off that tree behind me. That means he can only go in a straight line at high speed. It's not nearly as fast as Hiroshin. I could see him, barely. Even so, that speed's probably on par with Guy's. Hell, with enough training with that, he could give Guy a run for his money. She broke herself from her musings as she leaped into the trees. After all, just because she was the prey in this test didn't mean she couldn't play the predator. Chapter 4. The Fox in the Trees. Troublesome was the only word Shikamaru could use to describe the current situation he was in. He was in unknown territory, facing an enemy he knew nothing about except that she was far stronger than he was, and he had no way of finding either of his comrades. Troublesome indeed. He was broken from his musings as he felt a hand grab his shoulder. Quickly drawing a kunai, the young Nara spun around to confront a possible enemy, only to be met, thankfully, by his teammate. Naruto, Shikamaru asked as he put his kunai away. He was caught off guard by the boy's appearance. He had thought Naruto had adopted something of a feral look when he first saw him earlier, but now that he was up close, he realized Naruto didn't just look feral, he looked outright demonic. Even his eyes were slitted for some reason. He'd have to ask him about that later. For some reason he thought it may have something to do with how he passed the academy test. Yeah, it's me. I guess you figured out that we're gonna have to work together if we want even a chance at getting those bells, the blonde explained. Yeah, but we'll need to find Hinata first. I have a plan, but we need her for it to work, Shikamaru answered. Okay, follow me then. I just caught her scent, Naruto said as he jumped into the trees. Scent? What is he? An Inuzuka? Was Shikamaru's thoughts as he leapt after his teammate. Naruto, you are going to have to explain a few things to me after this is over. Yeah, I know. After a few minutes, the two would-be genin ran into their final teammate. Naruto and Shikamaru came across Hinata on a branch about 50 feet off the ground. She seemed to be waiting for them, not surprising considering her bloodline. Naruto-kun, Shikamaru, she called to them as they approached, only for Naruto to seemingly teleport right next to her and cover her mouth. Shoo, we have to stay quiet or she'll find us, he whispered in her ear. Normally being this close to the boy she loved would cause her to faint. However, the urgency of the situation seemed to allow her more self-control. That, and she had just picked up something on the edges of her vision. Naruto-kun, she said as Naruto brought his hand away. Anko-sensei's coming. Damn it, Shikamaru cursed as he landed next to them. Alright, I'll have to make this quick. Here's the plan. Naruto, I need you to stay here and distract her for a while, so I can prepare my cage main. Hinata, you and I are going to be hiding close by, so we can move in when needed. After I trap Anko-sensei with my jutsu, Hinata, you need to move in and get the bells. You'll only have a few seconds before she breaks the jutsu, so make them count. Any questions? Naruto and Hinata shook their heads. Okay, Hinata, let's move, Shikamaru said as the two jumped away as Naruto took out a kunai. As she leapt away, Hinata turned to him. Good luck, Naruto-kun. Doubt I'll need it, but thanks anyway, the blonde replied with one of his confident smirks. Not 2 seconds after Hinata and Shikamaru jumped into the foliage, a shuriken flew at Naruto which he deflected with his kunai. As he saw the foliage in front of him rustle as something large was passing through it, he started to take a step forward and, just like before, shot forward like a bullet. However, Anko was expecting this and was able to block his attack as she emerged. Naruto quickly vanished again as Anko strained to see her student. Quickly finding him, she brought her kunai in front of her just in time to deflect him from above. Damn! He's shooting from one tree to the other so he can attack me from any angle, she thought as she drew a second kunai and continued to block his high-speed attacks. This continued for about a minute until Anko finally dodged one of Naruto's passes completely and planted her knee into his gut, sending him flying to about where he was originally. "Come on!" she called out to him. "Stop holding back. Where's the demon that killed Mizuki? I did give you permission, remember?" Standing up, panting, Naruto smirked. "So you want to see it, huh? You want to experience it firsthand? Fine," he said as he bent over slightly and spread his fingers so that had a claw-like appearance. "You asked for it." Naruto closed his eyes and sent a mental command to the seal. "Activate demon form Ichibi level now." In the depths of Naruto's soul, at the center of his mindscape, a silent command was given to the system controlling the seal. In the room that held the giant crystal that was Kyuubi's power, the control panel lit up as the command reached it. A great beam of energy shot from the holes in the top and bottom of the room, bathing the crystal in bluish-white light, forcing it to give off more of its power. The beams of light emanating from the crystal turned darker and widened. The larger beam of light itself turned a light crimson from exposure to the radiant power the crystal was giving off. All throughout the great fortress, the beams of energy turned crimson as the system strained to filter out the worst of the impurities so Naruto's body wouldn't be destroyed. Outside of the fortress, the beams of energy feeding into the rest of Naruto's mindscape widened enormously and turned a light crimson. Far away, on one of the many terraces of the great building built into the side of a waterfall that Naruto had seen, stood Kyuubi. The great demon turned his head towards the center of the mindscape as he felt the power that was once his released. He noticed the ominous red glow given off from the main seal. Realizing what this meant, the demon placed his hand on the small pedestal in front of him. This building, the cartographer as it was called, had been put in so Kyuubi could monitor the condition of Naruto's body, and even see through his eyes if need be. Right now, the latter is exactly what Kyuubi wanted. A wide, flat screen was projected in the large space before him, and on the screen was what Naruto was seeing. As Kyuubi stepped back for a better view, a single thought went through his head. This should be interesting. Outside in the real world, only a few seconds after Naruto sent the mental command did he start to feel the effects, and everyone else started to see them. Hinata was the first to notice a change as she looked on from her hiding spot with her Byakugan. She gasped as she saw Naruto's chakra coils become flooded with some strange chakra. She had seen how his body had changed before, far more than Shikamaru. When she had seen him earlier with her Byakugan, she saw that his chakra stores had nearly tripled and he now had the raw chakra capacity on par with that of a Kage. She had also noticed that around his navel, his chakra began to swirl in a spiral shape. Also, the chakra in this spiral was red. And now this red chakra was spreading to the rest of his body. And for a second, she thought she saw the spiral chakra take on the shape of a fox's head. Imagine how when Naruto uses Kyuubi's chakra against Neji, and Neji sees Kyuubi. She could tell that this chakra was far more potent than regular chakra, and if it kept spreading like it did, it would probably become visible to the human eye. It soon did. Anko and Shikamaru's eyes widened as a strange red chakra began to flow out of Naruto's stomach. The chakra spread across his body until it enveloped him completely. It then began to change from a simple aura to something else. The aura began to take on the shape of a fox. Two fox-ear-like shapes formed on top of the aura, and a single tail formed from behind it. Anko then noticed that Naruto was going through a physical change as well. His ears elongated further. His whisker marks became even more defined. His canines grew even longer, and when he opened his eyes, they were a bloody crimson. Imagine when he goes into demon form for the first time in Shippuden. Naruto's lips curled into a dark smile, a twisted, demonic version of his normal smile. This alone caused Anko to hesitate, that and sheer power Naruto was radiating. The killing intent alone was fear-inducing. And not just any fear, primal fear, a fear that strikes into anyone no matter how powerful they are. It was awe-inspiring. Anko was brought back to reality as Naruto brought his left arm up, held it horizontally across his chest, then swiped it sideways. As he did, it created a massive shockwave that blasted across the great branch, knocking Anko back and blinding her momentarily. As she regained her footing, she was sent flying as Naruto burst through the smoke at incredible speed and knocked her back with a swipe of his claw-like hand. Landing on a tree, Anko quickly leapt away as Naruto tore through said tree. As she flew through the air, she was able to regain her bearings. Damn, that is some killer intent. Maybe I bit off a bit more than I can chew. As Naruto flew as her again, Anko's hands went through a blur of hand seals. Katan, Gukaku no Jutsu, she yelled as she blew a giant fireball from her mouth. Seemingly unfazed by the display of power, Naruto simply charged through it as the fireball exploded, setting the surrounding foliage ablaze. As the flames dissipated, Anko lowered her arm so she could see through, and her eyes widened at what she saw. In the center of the dissipating inferno stood Naruto, without a scratch on him. Not even his hair was singed. Whoa, guess that aura's not just for show. To stop a Gukaku with hardly any effort. That's some shield. Anko was broken from her thoughts as a dark chuckle sounded from Naruto. So, are you impressed, Anko-sensei? Naruto said in what would normally be his normal tone, only twisted and demonic. Even so, that calmed Anko's fears slightly now that she knew that Naruto was still in control and not some raging demon. Regaining her composure, Anko drew a kunai. As long as I keep my distance, he can't do a thing. I just need to hang back and wear him down. As if he heard Anko's thoughts, Naruto smirked in a demonic way as he brought his arm up, and then brought it down in a swipe. As he did, however, the chakra on the arm kept going, shooting out like a serpent at incredible speed. Holy shit! Was all Anko could think of as she leaped upward. However, the giant arm then arced upward and followed her, not losing any speed. As it approached, Anko twisted her body so she moved to the side, narrowly missing the giant claw as it flew past. Just then, however, she noticed a flash of red as the edge of her vision. As she turned her head to see it, a single thought went through her head. Crap! She brought her hands in front of her just as a second chakra arm slammed into her, propelling her through several trees, slamming into another large tree about 50 feet away. As she stood up on the branch, she looked back to where she was before. She saw that the arm she had dodged was now graping onto a branch higher up and was pulling Naruto up like a high-speed winch. The arm that had punched her was now retracted back into its original state. As he reached the branch she was on, the other arm let go and returned to its regular size as Naruto dropped to the wood below about 20 feet in front of her. Geez, maybe I shouldn't have let him use Kyuubi, Anko thought to herself as she placed her back to the tree and brought her thumb up to her mouth. Didn't want to use the big guns on a genin, but I need to show him just who he's dealing with. Anko opened her mouth and was about to bite down on her thumb when she realized she couldn't move. Barely moving her eyes, she glanced down and saw that her shadow looked different than before. Following it, her eyes widened as she saw a smirking Shikamaru kneeling on nearby branch with his hands in a trademark hand sign. Her shadow fused with his. Kageme no Jutsu, success, Shikamaru said as he stood up, forcing her to conform to his same stance. As Anko tried to break the shadow bind, she heard wood cracking behind her. Then, Naruto's giant chakra arms burst from the tree behind her, wrapping around her arms and body, binding her further. She glanced back to Naruto to see his hands pushed into the tree. Before Anko could do any more than register this, someone shot out of the brush and landed right in front of her. It was Hinata. The young Hyuga quickly grabbed the 3 bells from the jounin and quickly tossed 2 of them to her teammates. Shikamaru quickly caught his and Naruto caught his with his chakra tail as his hands were incapacitated. Hinata then jumped back to a branch opposite of Shikamaru. So Anko-sensei? Naruto said with a demonic fox-like smirk. Do we pass? Anko could only chuckle at the situation she was in. She had been bested by 3 genin in under 5 minutes. Sure, one was a Hyuga, another was a genius, and the third a Junshiriki, but still. Okay, you pass, now let me go, Anko said. Nodding, Shikamaru released his shadow and Naruto's claws retracted. Then the aura of Chakra surrounding Naruto seemingly evaporated as the Yuki returned to his body. His bell dropped into his open hand as the tail vanished. As the Hinata and Shikamaru jumped to the branch their teammate and sensei were on, Shikamaru approached Naruto. All right, Naruto. Now can you tell us what the fuck is up with you? Hinata, though not near as forward as Shikamaru, merely nodded in agreement. Naruto sighed as he scratched the back of his head. All right, but we should talk about this somewhere else. Let's head for the tower. We can talk there and get some food. I don't know about you Gakis, but I'm starving, Anko put in. Nodding, the 3 genin followed Anko as she jumped away towards the tower. As the 4 leaped through the trees towards the tower, Anko turned to the blonde fox boy. Hey Naruto. What was that technique you used back there? The high-speed one. I've never heard of anything like it. Naruto simply chuckled. Well, of course you've never heard of it. I only invented it this morning. His new teammates looked at him like he had grown a 3rd arm from his foot, and it was made of popcorn. You made it? This morning? Anko said, shocked. Well, yeah, it was why I was so late to the meeting. You see, I was jumping through the forest and I realized something. What if, since you only need a little bit of chakra to boost your jump to the next tree, what if you concentrated a lot of chakra to the jump? Took me a while to get it down. So much so that I almost didn't make it to the meeting. The technique is really quite simple. I just concentrate a large amount of chakra to my feet. When I have enough, I release it and well, you saw what happened. I also don't need to necessarily jump to use it. I concentrate the chakra to the sole and toes of my back foot and release it just as I take a step forward, propelling me forward at incredible speed. That's what I did the first time I used it on you. I can even link them together by doing the same with the other foot as it hits the ground at the end of the leap. Now this is by no means a perfect technique. Anyone with good enough eyesight or a jujitsu can see me coming like you did, and I'm guessing you were able to see me too, Hinata. Hi. Exactly. However, the biggest issue with it isn't if someone can see you, it's how well you can see. Going at that speed, it's pretty difficult to get your bearings on where you're going. Like I said, only those with enhanced vision like me, a jujitsu like Hinata, or trained eyes like yours can hope to use this jutsu effectively. Plus, your body needs to be trained to react in time to stop or attack. I could probably go twice as fast, but then I'd just be slamming into trees randomly. My body can only work so fast. Anko nodded. But still, with enough training, we can get your body's reaction time up. I think you should start wearing training weights so the speed your body can react at is increased. Give it some time and enough training, and you'll have something awesome. By the way, have you come up with a name for this thing yet? Naruto smirked and immediately stopped on a branch. The others couldn't react fast enough and landed on the next branch and looked back at him in confusion. Then, Naruto vanished and reappeared almost instantly next to Hinata. Shuunpa. Flash step, huh? Anko replied. Minato. If only you could see him now. Coming up with such a revolutionary technique in only a few hours. He really is your son. The 3 new shinobi and sensei rode up the elevator in the tower. Shikamaru and Hinata had been quite impressed at the place and were pretty surprised to find that Naruto was living here now. At Shikamaru's asking, Anko had explained to the 2 the origins of the tower, but not Naruto's connection to its former tenant. Naruto, Hinata, and Shikamaru were now sitting in the TV room while Anko got them some drinks from the kitchen. Well, Naruto began as Anko brought them some soft drinks and sat down too. I guess I'd better start from the beginning. Hinata and Shikamaru began listening intently. You both know the story of how the Kyuubi was defeated, right? Yeah, Shikamaru replied. Yondaime killed the demon with a powerful jutsu that caused his own death in the process, saving the village and all its inhabitants. Nodding, Naruto continued. Well, that's only half the story. This is what really happened that night. Shikamaru's and Hinata's eyes widened at this. Minato Namikaze couldn't kill the demon that night. No one could have. Kyuubi was the strongest of all the Bijou. It was practically a demigod. Therefore, Minato went with a backup. The jutsu he used is called the Shiki Fujin. It's more of a summoning jutsu than anything else. Using it, the caster calls the Lord of Death himself, Shinigami, to seal away the soul of the caster's enemy inside himself/herself. Directly following this, the Shinigami takes the soul of the caster, throwing both the sealer and the sealed in oblivion. That is the jutsu that Minato used to defeat Kyuubi. Hinata and Shikamaru were gaping at this. A jutsu that summoned the Lord of Death himself. But what does any of that have to do with you? Hinata asked. Naruto sighed, as if he were composing himself. The Shiki Fujin was designed to target a human. It wasn't that the Shinigami couldn't pull the soul out of the Kyuubi. The problem was that Minato's body wouldn't be able to hold Kyuubi even for the few seconds between the jutsu's completion and his death. However, there was one other way. While an adult's chakra coils cannot hold such immense power, the undeveloped chakra coils of a child could, more specifically an infant. While Shikamaru was still confused, Hinata was beginning to understand. That night, Minato Namikaze sacrificed his life to seal the Kyuubi no Kitsune into his newborn son. While Shikamaru's eyes were beginning to widen with understanding and shock, Hinata's seemed like they were beginning to tear up and were filled with pity and understanding. You! Hinata began. Yep, Naruto said with his head held low. I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, container of Kyuubi no Kitsune. Naruto finished. The four sat like that for several minutes, half trying to digest what they just heard, and the other half waiting for their reaction. Eventually, Shikamaru spoke. Whoa, that's incredible, Shikamaru began. But, if that's the case, and you are practically the only thing protecting the village from Kyuubi, not to mention the son of its greatest Hokage, why do the villagers treat you like shit? Naruto chuckled humorlessly. Well, to answer your first question, they're afraid of me. Just because the Kyuubi's locked up inside me doesn't mean it's dead, even though he's powerless. In their eyes, I'm just the demon preparing its revenge. Some want to avenge Minato by killing me. Others think I've been somehow tainted by Kyuubi's power and turned into a demon. Many think I'm Kyuubi reincarnated. As for me being Minato's son, that's one of the best-kept secrets of the village. Excluding us, you can probably count how many people know this on one hand. The reason for this being that my old man had plenty of enemies, both inside and outside the village. His two teammates nodded. After all, just mentioning the Yondaime's name in IWA or Kumo with anything other than absolute hatred was bound to get you a death sentence. So what happened those 2 nights ago? How exactly did you become a genin? Shikamaru asked. Well, it all started after I failed the exam. After we were let out of the academy, Mizuki approached me. He told me that if I took the forbidden scroll from the Hokage's tower and learned a jutsu from it, he'd pass me. Being the naive fool I was, I jumped at it. Naruto began. Hinata and Shikamaru were both confused and shocked. Why would Mizuki-sensei tell Naruto-kun to do that? And what happened to him anyway? Hinata thought to herself. Getting the scroll was rather easy, considering Aji-san's weakness to my personal jutsu. Naruto smirked at that. Shikamaru, Anko and Hinata chuckled/giggled at what Naruto was referring to. The wise and powerful Hokage being beaten by nothing more than an academy student using a modified henge was quite amusing. Sarutobi had included that in his explanation to Anko. After that, I got into the forest while the old man sent a bunch of shinobi to look for me, Iruka-sensei and Mizuki being 2 of them. I got to the spot where I was supposed to meet Mizuki and started learning one of the jutsus. About 3 hours later, I had almost finished learning it. That's when Iruka-sensei found me. He told me that every ninja in the village was looking for me and basically asked me what the hell I was thinking. I told him that Mizuki told me to do it. That's when Mizuki showed up. Naruto paused and lowered his head. Hinata noticed that his hands were clenched into fists and were almost shaking. The bastard had set me up. He'd lied to me. He used me to get the scroll so he could get it from me. That's when he told me about it. Kyuubi? Hinata asked. Yeah, Naruto continued. He told me I was a demon and that everyone hated me. Even Iruka-sensei. I didn't know what to think. So I did the only thing I could. I ran. I took the scroll and ran away as fast as I could. I found Mizuki team and Iruka-sensei a little later. Iruka was hurt and lying against a tree. I think Mizuki team hit him in the back with one of his Fuma shurikens. He was telling Iruka how much of a demon I was and how I was going to destroy the village. That's when I had an epiphany. I was a demon, just not the one everyone thought I was. Kyuubi's power had flowed through my veins for my entire life, healing my injuries faster than any other human. I was at least partially a demon. So then I realized if Kyuubi's power was my power too, then why not use it? I started to concentrate chakra like Iruka-sensei taught us, and to every corner of my mind and soul, I yelled at the fox to give me its power. Not a second later, he answered. And answered. Shikamaru stuttered. You talked to Kyuubi? Naruto chuckled. Yeah, but hearing his voice was nothing compared to what happened next. All my life, I felt as if I had some power trapped inside me, waiting to be released. I didn't realize this until afterwards though, since I didn't know anything different. But right then and there, that power was released. I can hardly describe what it was like. It was like, well, ultimate power. It was chaotic, unrelenting, untamable. Like no one but me could control it. I could feel my body changing, morphing to better suit the power. I felt like I could do anything. Defeat any enemy, overcome any obstacle, almost like I was a god. It was incredible to say the least. Then the power settled and, for the first time, I felt calm. My head was clear. I knew what I had to do, and so I went forward to face my enemy. I couldn't have arrived at a better time too, because Mizuki's shuriken was about to cut Iruka-sensei in two. I split the weapon with my claws and faced the team. As you can imagine, both of them were pretty shocked at how I looked. That and the aura of Yuki swirling around me. Mizuki recovered quicker than Iruka and claimed that I was the demon and was showing my true face. If you think about, I was in a way. I told him that while I may be a demon, I was also Naruto Uzumaki, and that I'd kill anyone who threatened my friends. The bastard retorted saying that I was just a genin and I couldn't beat him, kinda stupid considering just a second before he was claiming that I was the great and powerful Kyuubi no Kitsune. I just chuckled and prepared the jutsu I had learned. As he finished, Naruto held out his hand, palm upward, as if he were holding a ball. Shikamaru and Hinata looked at it, curious as to what he was about to do. Their eyes widened as Naruto blue chakra began to swirl around it, creating a raging maelstrom of chakra. That's... Hinata began. Yeah, the jutsu I learned was Rasengan, one of the two signature moves of my father, Naruto said. He then clenched his hand into a fist and the spiraling orb dissipated into wisps of chakra. As you can imagine, Mizuki team was pretty shocked at this, Iruka-sensei too. So shocked that the bastard didn't do anything except stare, until I slammed my Kyuubified Rasengan into his gut anyway. What happened next wasn't pretty, to say the least. To put it simply, Mizuki went boom. Boom, Shikamaru said, confused. I mean literally boom. All that was left was chunks of bloody pulp splattered around the clearing. I basically reduced Mizuki to a stain on the landscape. His teammates looked at him in shock again, with Shikamaru looking like he might vomit at the mental picture Naruto had just painted. Naruto killed Mizuki? What the hell? Though I guess I can understand. He was trying to kill him and Iruka-sensei. Troublesome. Hinata meanwhile was looking at Naruto with a mix of pity, understanding, and a little bit of awe. I always knew you were better than everyone else thought, Naruto-kun. And now you've finally proven it. Naruto spent the next several minutes explaining what had happened since then, though like with Anko, he didn't describe his mindscape. When his narration was finally complete, Shikamaru was the first to speak. Gotta say, that is one hell of a story, Naruto. I'm still trying to get a full grasp on all of it. Hinata just smiled and nodded. But, Shikamaru began, there's one other thing I wanted to ask you. Naruto and Hinata looked to him with curiosity. You never described what this mindscape of yours looked like, and I was curious as to what it was like. Hinata and Anko looked to Naruto and nodded in agreement. Naruto just smirked. Well, I could, but it'd be a lot easier to just show you. Ha! Was the combined reaction to his statement. Naruto gestured for them to come over near him. Just place your hand on my shoulder or head and close your eyes. Too confused to say anything, his teammates complied. Shikamaru put his hand on Naruto's right shoulder. Anko put hers on his left while Hinata put her hand on his head, blushing slightly at the physical contact, and all four closed their eyes. Alright, Kyuubi, now what? Just channel a little chakra to where their hands are and think of coming to the mindscape. The chakra should pull their minds in too. Okay. As small wisps of blue and red chakra coiled around both her hand and the hands of her new friends, Hinata felt like she was falling slightly. As she opened her eyes, she gasped. Chapter 5. Mindwalkers. Hinata gasped as she opened her eyes to find she was no longer in Anko's tower. She wasn't in the same position she was in a second ago. Just a second ago, Shikamaru, Anko-sensei and herself were crowded around Naruto-kun, each with a hand on him. Now they were all standing next to each other. Naruto-kun was to her left, followed by Shikamaru, then Anko-sensei. The latter two were just opening their eyes and were equally shocked as to where they were. Naruto was merely smirking at their reaction. Team 8 was currently standing inside a massive room atop a large platform supported by struts from the walls. The room itself was octagonal in shape, with the bottom and ceiling curving upwards and downwards, respectively, into identical holes. As Hinata looked down, she noticed they were standing on a circular piece of glass set in the platform, below which was a large orb that glowed a bluish-white. In front of them was a bridge that led to across to what appeared to be a large door of some kind. It's basically the room where you kill Tartarus in Halo 2. Shikamaru was the first to break the silence. Whoa, now this is something. Hi, Hinata agreed. Anko simply nodded. The three were broken from their stupor when they heard a mechanical click and metal sliding against metal to see Naruto standing in front of the now open door. So are you going to stare at this room all day, or do you want to see the rest? He said with a smirk. Not wanting to be left behind, the three followed their teammate. The four walked into a short hallway that led through an equally large door to find themselves in another spacious room. As they walked through the next door, however, they gaped in disbelief and awe at the sight that awaited them. They walked out onto what seemed to be a balcony on the side of a great cone-like structure, Delta Halo's control room, that rose out of what seemed to be an ocean right next to a peninsula of land, the area around Delta Halo's control room. After coming out of a beach, great cliffs rose up, creating a canyon that led inland. Hinata noticed that, as the cliffs narrowed, a massive metal strut came out of either face pointing towards the opposite face. She was broken from her observations as Shikamaru spoke. Guys, look up. Glancing over to see that her teammate was looking upwards, wide-eyed, looking slightly queasy, Hinata and Anko tilted their heads upwards. As they did, they saw land in front of them rise up, and up, and up until it had made a complete circle. Somehow, they were standing on a giant floating ring. Naruto, Anko spoke as she looked over to Blonde. What the fuck? Naruto chuckled as he walked over to a small pedestal on the side of the platform. It's my mind, it can be whatever it needs to be, though from what I know, this is pushing the limits some, he said as he placed his hand on the pedestal. Suddenly, two thin beams of green light shot from the bottom of the balcony down to a small dock-like structure on the beach. So, this place can be whatever you want it to be? Shikamaru asked. Not really. This place was already here when I found it. I can make stuff in this mindscape, but I can't make any real changes to what's already here. This is really more of a manifestation of my personality and mental processes, though the inclusion of Kyuubi probably caused this to be blown way bigger than what it would have been without his power, Naruto answered. Anko was about to speak up, but Hinata interrupted her. A place of serene bliss intertwined with a place of great power in the form of something that would be impossible in the real world, representing your kindness, intellect, and drive to do what others would think impossible. That's it, isn't it? Anko and Shikamaru looked at her in shock, considering she didn't stutter even once, while Naruto had a look of surprise on his face, which quickly turned to one of agreement and happiness. Yep, I thought the same thing when I first came here, he answered as the platform came to a stop at the dock. As the four followed Naruto off the dock, a gentle sea breeze blew across the beach. Wow, this place even has natural weather. If it weren't for the surroundings, I'd say we were in Mizu no Kuni or something, Anko said. Hinata's attention was drawn to something at the end of the dock. Naruto-kun, what is that? Oh, that's our ride. The object was a car, but it wasn't like any Hinata had ever seen before. Self-propelled wheeled vehicles were a rarity in the elemental countries. They were hard to make, put out a lot of pollution, and as shinobi could travel just as fast on their own, they were only had practical use to civilians. And though regular horses and carts were slower, they were far cheaper and easier to maintain. You'd usually only find them in places like Yuki no Kuni where conditions warranted their use. This thing was about the size of a large car. It had a massive suspension. The chassis was probably a foot above the wheels, which were extremely large and thick. At the front, the hood went in a small arc to provide room for the wheels should they come up, and had what looked like a winch under the front along with two headlights. In the center, the body dropped down to provide room for the driver and passenger. However, there was no door or roof for that matter. The closest thing to a roof was a steel bar going from the windshield, which housed an extra par of lights, to where the back window would normally be. Instead of a door, there was just an opening on either side where one would simply climb in. On the back was a raised area that sported a third pair of lights with two seats covered just two steel bars to act as a roll cage. Except for the bars, the entire vehicle was painted olive green. It looked to be all utility, minimal comfort. If you haven't figured it out yet, it's the transport Warthog from Halo 3, the one that can carry 4 Marines. Nice car, but wouldn't it be easier to just use Chakra enhanced running? Anko asked. Yes, but you can't use Chakra in here, so this is quicker. By the way, it's called a Warthog, Naruto answered as he jumped into the driver's seat. Hinata rode shotgun, whatever that was. Anko jumped in the seat behind Hinata, Shikamaru behind Naruto. Naruto started the vehicle and the engine rumbled to life. The sand under the wheels churned slightly as they dug into it and they were off, leaving pair of tracks in the sand. They drove through the canyon for a few minutes, until one side ended and they were driving next to a long beach. Hinata's eyes were drawn upwards as she heard squawking to see 5 seagulls flying over the water. Wanting to get a better view of the ocean, she got up and sat on top of the seat. You know, how the passenger always rides in the Warthog. As she and the others watched the birds, Hinata and Anko noticed fish swimming in the water too. So you even included animals? Pretty extensive, Naruto. Anko spoke up. Yeah, it makes it seem more authentic. Shikamaru meanwhile was lying back in his seat watching the clouds go by and staring at the other side of the ring. Despite the vertigo he felt when he first saw the rest of Naruto's mindscape, he now thought it had a kind of alien and majestic look to it. The seat he was in was actually quite comfortable, and the sound of the waves crashing and air rushing by combined with the low hum of the engine was making him pretty sleepy. Yeah, a nap would be nice. And this seat is pretty comfy, Shikamaru thought as he began to doze off. Unfortunately for him, Naruto noticed this in the rearview mirror. He was about to yell at Shikamaru, but then a much better idea came to mind. Tapping Hinata's leg to get her attention, Naruto motioned for her to sit down. Not knowing what to expect, she complied. Then, without warning, Naruto threw the wheel to the left and sent the Warthog barreling into the water, causing a large wall of water to fly up onto the vehicle, drenching the occupants and knocking one unlucky Nara from his peaceful pseudo-slumber. And Naruto. What the hell? Shikamaru yelled as he pulled some of his now matted hair from his face. Naruto turned around in his seat with an evil smirk on his face, which was only amplified by his new demonic features. I'm not letting you falling asleep on this trip lazy. I think it's about time you dropped that shirker attitude of yours. You are a ninja now, remember. Shikamaru just sighed, muttering about troublesome blondes while Anko cackled and Hinata giggled, forgetting they got soaked too, but they didn't mind. Naruto threw the jeep in reverse and backed out of the water, and they were on their way again. After a few minutes, everyone was dried off from the wind and was watching the landscape pass by. The cliff slowly drew back slightly and the beach ended as they drove onto an upward path. They were soon on the top of the cliff, driving on a dirt path in the middle of rolling fields along the peninsula. Naruto Anko spoke up as they drove, getting Naruto's attention. How do you know so much about this place? The only times I can think of that you could have explored this place was last night and the night before. And I don't think a collective of 14 or so hours is enough to learn so much about a place as big and extensive as this. So how did you do it? Well, it works like this. I have complete control of the passage of time in here in relation to the real world when I'm asleep. What could seem like 5 days in here could translate to just 5 minutes out there. And when I'm awake and I come in here, all time spent in here is instantaneous in the real world. So basically, when we leave here, no matter how much time we've spent in here, not 1 second will have passed in the real world. I don't really know all the details of it. Something to do with the instantaneous transfer of information or something. You'd probably have to ask a Yamanaka or someone else that knows a lot about the mind. Everyone looked at him with looks akin to shock. Before anyone could say anything, however, Naruto spoke up. We're almost there. His 3 companions looked forward to see the peninsula joining the mainland. However, a small spit of land jutted out to their right where a large building stood, jutting out over the cliff and water below. It was large, though not as large as the building they arrived in. It was shaped like a large A and had a large balcony on the end with something on it, though no one could make out what it was. It was a similar grayish color as the first building. As they drove along the path towards it, Anko noticed what seemed to be a large door on the land side, most likely where they would drive in. As they approached the door, it glowed and slid open with no visible prompting by Naruto. The room behind the door was massive. It seemed to be a couple 100 feet long and about 100 feet high. The walls, floor, and ceiling were all in a hexagonal shape. There were also small walls coming off the main ones to form large pockets. Hinata noticed that in these were other vehicles. Some were other warthogs, but some with noticeable differences. Instead of the seats in the back, there was just a platform with what Hinata assumed was some kind of weapon. Some were small towers of metal with a steel plate on the front with 3 tubes sticking through it. Regular warthog. The other kind still had the small tower, but instead of 3 tubes and a steel plate, there was just 1 massive tube Gauss warthog. The young Hyuga was broken from her observations as Naruto drove into an empty pocket and stopped the warthog. Well, this is where we get off. We'll have to walk a ways now. As the 4 jumped out of the warthog and continued to walk down the room, Naruto identified other vehicles. Ghost, he said, gesturing to a small purple vehicle. It was about 8 feet long with a seat on the back along with 2 small wings coming off the sides of the front. What puzzled Hinata was that there were no obvious wheels on the craft. Mongoose Hinata looked over to see a small, 4-wheeled vehicle that reminded her of a bicycle with a color scheme similar to the warthog. Spectre, Naruto said, pointing to a large purple craft as they walked onward. It was about the size of a warthog, only it seemed a lot like a ghost. It was a similar purple color and seemed to have no wheels. Though like the warthog they had ridden in, it seemed to be able to hold 4 people. The driver up front in some kind of enclosed cabin, 2 passengers on either side, and a 4th in the back on another kind of weapon like the other warthogs. The last 2 vehicles were the strangest by far, and the most imposing. The Wraith, as Naruto called it, was something akin to a beetle. It was about twice the length of a warthog and twice as tall. It had two stubby wings on the front and a large tube with a pair of wing-like fins on the sides coming out of a hole on the top. The scorpion was even bigger. It was similarly colored to the mongoose and warthog, though it was about 2.5 times as long and 2.5 times taller than the latter. Instead of wheels, it rested on 4 steel belts in pods on the front and back sides. Hinata couldn't make out any kind of seat, but she could see a hatch on the main body where someone could enter. A large tower rose from the back, coming out from which was a very long tube with a smaller tube to the side. The whole thing seemed to be very heavily armored and looked like it could take quite a pounding. "Hey Naruto," Shikamaru spoke up. "After we're done, you think we could drive some of these?" "Sure. I'm betting you'll like the ghost and mongoose," he said with a smirk. Speaking of the ghost, Anko began. "How exactly do those other 3 move? I didn't see any wheels on them." "Anti-gravity generators," Naruto answered as they approached the door at the end. When everyone looked at him like they were thinking WTF, he elaborated. "They float about 1.5 feet off the ground." "Oh, what?" "Hey, I got a giant floating ring as my mindscape. Like I said, just about anything is possible in here." The 4 walked for about 10 minutes through the halls of the structure until they finally came out onto the balcony. Naruto, what is that?" Shikamaru said, pointing to the longsword that was now sitting on the balcony. "Our next ride, of course. The longsword. It's an aircraft. In other words, yes, I do have flying machines in here," Naruto answered, walking up the ramp into the craft. Unease rising again, his 3 companions followed him into the craft. As Naruto sat in the pilot's seat, the others stood behind him, looking out the windows. The craft shook slightly as Naruto started it up. As the craft rose up, Hinata's mind was racing with one thought. "I'm flying. I'm actually flying." Naruto guided the craft towards edge of the ring. As he neared it, he angled the longsword upward. "You know, maybe you should look a bit closer at what's beyond this ring," Naruto said as they pierced the cloud cover. As they did, Hinata, Shikamaru, and Anko looked out the windows again, and their jaws hit the floor. Spread out below them was the rest of the mindscape in all its impossibly huge glory. "Naruto, what were we just on?" Anko asked, wide-eyed. "Oh, just the portal ring. It's what connects my mindscape to the outside world and allowed me to bring you 3 here," he said with a carefree smile. And just how big is this place?" Shikamaru asked. "Let's see. Including the ring and the void in the center, the total area of my mindscape would be 6 for 64, 933, 614 square miles," he said in a nonchalant tone like it was nothing special, while everyone looked at him like he had grown another appendage made of something random again. As Naruto cruised over the mindscape, he explained some of its functions to his passengers. "So basically, the structure in the middle of that chasm is where Kyuubi's power is held, and a small portion of it is always being channeled into your body, represented by the rest of the mindscape," Shikamaru said as they cleared the mountains and flew over the Great Sea. "For the most part, yeah," Naruto answered. "So, is that where Kyuubi is held too? I kind of always imagined the seal like it was some big cage where Kyuubi was locked up," Anko asked/stated. "Not exactly, oh. Speak of the devil," Naruto said as a familiar, to him at least, hologram appeared on the pedestal next to him. "I see you brought guests," the fox demon said. "Yep. Where are you?" Naruto answered. "I'm on Relic. Look on the base." "Ah, I see," Naruto said as he saw the island and guided the longsword towards it. The island in question seemed nothing but a large sandbar rising out of the ocean. In the center was a large structure made out of rust-colored metal. At first, Anko thought it may be aged and decaying, but as they got closer, she saw that that's just how it was colored. The structure was long and narrow, extending about half the length of the island but only about 1/3 as wide. At the front was a large spire about 100 or so feet tall. Behind it was a large platform. It was this platform that Naruto was guiding the longsword as he prepared to land. As they descended, Shikamaru noticed someone standing on the platform, right in front of, he realized, where they would touch down. Hey Naruto, who's that? He asked, pointing at the figure. Naruto simply smirked and then replied. You'll see, he said. Kyuubi stood on the platform, watching the long sword descend. Even though he was standing right in front of it, he was unfazed as the air rushed past him from its descent thrusters. When he sensed that Naruto had brought his new friends into the mindscape, he was curious. So he hopped in the nearest teleporter and warped to the relic arena. He wondered just how those three would react to meeting the demon who had nearly destroyed them 13 years earlier. Well, that Anko woman anyway. She was the only one that would have experienced that attack firsthand, since the other two would have only been months old at most. As the long sword touched down and the ramp lowered, Kyuubi was broken from his musings as he saw the four standing at the top. This should be interesting. Anko looked at the man in front of them as they descended down the ramp. He was pretty good-looking in her opinion. He looked to be around 40, with an angled, serious face that wore a neutral and serious expression. His eyes were dark and intelligent, though they were partially obscured by a pair of red-tinted visors with bands that seemed to disappear in his swirling black hair. His outfit, though, was, in her opinion, one of the most badass ever. A tattered black cloak with a crimson interior fell off his shoulders, obscuring his torso and upper legs, and fluttered in a supernatural wind. The only clothing not obscured by it was his black pants and boots. She was broken from her wonderings of how someone other than Naruto was in this mindscape as the man spoke in deep and articulate voice. Hello again, Naruto. Nice to see you brought company. Naruto simply nodded and smiled in return. Hey, who are you? I thought Naruto and that bastard fox were the only ones in here, Anko said, a bit peeved at being ignored. Naruto chuckled while the man rolled his eyes in seeming exasperation. Well, there is no one else in here other than me and the so-called bastard fox, who, by the way, doesn't exactly like being called a bastard, Naruto said, smiling in amusement. Anko's, Hinata's, and Shikamaru's eyes widened in shock, and in Anko's case, fear. Not because of the fox's presence necessarily. If he could do anything, he probably would have already. Anko was afraid because she had just insulted one of the most powerful beings on the planet to its face. Not the smartest move. You're Kyuubi? Shikamaru stammered. But I thought you were sealed away. Naruto just sighed as he began to explain. Like I said before, not necessarily. What's sealed in the center is Kyuubi's, which is technically mine now, by the way, power. Kyuubi's mind, while trapped in this mindscape, is free to move around as much as he likes using a human form. He just can't transform into his true form, and he can't access the longsword or any other aircraft in the mindscape. Oh, so, no hard feelings for me insulting you? Huh? Please don't kill him, Anko stuttered. Everyone else then had a collective sweat drop, and Kyuubi shook his head in exasperation. Shikamaru's vision blurred slightly as they returned to their bodies. Looking around, he saw they were back in Anko's living room. Well, they hadn't really left in the first place now that he thought about it. Taking his hand off of Naruto's shoulder as the boy stood up, he glanced at a clock next to the TV. Just as Naruto said, not even a few seconds had passed. Man, that feels weird. Oh, come on, the transfer isn't that bad, Naruto said, sounding a little hurt by the comment. I didn't mean that. It just feels weird having been inside your head for 5 hours and not having a second pass out here. Oh yeah, I guess that does seem kind of weird. Well, if we're all done having life-changing revelations and jaw drops, how about we go get some food, Anko said. Yeah, we didn't exactly get anything, Shikamaru said. All right, Ichiraku's should be serving their lunch special right about now. We head over there, Naruto said with his usual grin. That brought a smile to Hinata's face as well. No matter how much he'd changed over the past 48 hours, he was still Naruto. Works for me, I suppose. I don't really care, Shikamaru said, putting his hands in his pockets. Fine with me. My favorite dango store is doing some repairs from a fire or something, and ramen does sound kind of good. Anko agreed. Sort of. Okay then, let's get going, Naruto said as they walked to the elevator. As the four walked out of the forest, Anko glanced at her watch. Oh right, I forgot. She then noticed her students looking at her with curious expressions. You guys go on ahead. I'll catch up. The jounin who took teams are supposed to report in at 11 o'clock to give their verdict to Hokage-sama. And those that passed their team need to give an assessment of the team's skill. It won't take very long. See you at Ichiraku's, she explained before waving and poofing away. Naruto and Shikamaru just shrugged as the three set off. Anko appeared in the usual cloud of smoke in the Hokage's office to find Asuma already there. Glancing at the clock on the wall, she noticed it was 11:10. Knowing Kakashi, he probably was finishing up just now. Even though the standard time for the test was 7 a.m., Kakashi, being the chronically tardy bastard that he was, would usually get there around 10 o'clock. That left an hour for the actual test. Not much purpose in that since he always failed the genin. So he should be here soon. Okay, we were supposed to start at 7, but he's always 3 hours late, so that bumps it up to 10. Then 1 hour for him to test them, plus 10 minutes to fail them and then explain why he failed them. That means he'll probably be here soon. No, scratch that. He will be here soon. If he's not here in the next 5 minutes, I'll make sure he's here before 5 minutes, 30 seconds, she thought as she adopted a small sadistic grin. Fortunately, for Kakashi anyway, the lazy jounin chose that moment to shun Shin into the room. Well, guess I won't have to drag him here, though that would have been fun. Cuckoo cuckoo. All right, the aged leader started. Now that we're all here, time to give your verdicts. Kakashi, I assume you gave them the bell test and failed them like you always do. Well, yes to first, no to the second. Yeah, I thought what? Anko yelled. Since when do you pass a genin team? I thought you always failed them, 'cause then you wouldn't have time to read your porn. Well, I would have less free time, but I didn't have choice. They did fulfill the requirements. Kiba was actually able to get part of the test and got Sasuke to help him fight me. Sakura got tied to the tree stump and I told the boys to eat the bentos and then told the three of them to try to take the bells again. Kiba gave Sakura his food, so they technically passed. The Inuzuka figured it out? I didn't know they were that perceptive, Asuma said, surprised. Not really. He thought I wasn't in the area. He just overestimates his own abilities. Though he is brash and doesn't usually think things through, he's got a good sense of teamwork with his partner, Akamaru. And I think he was the only one who really understood the purpose when I explained it. Sasuke, on the other hand, fits the whole emo Avenger thing perfectly. He hardly cares for teamwork at all. Hell, the only reason he even agreed to work with Kiba was because he dug him out of ground after I buried him with a Doton Jutsu. I'm hoping Kiba will be able to counterbalance that. Apart from his teamwork flaws, he's rather skilled for a genin. Sakura Haruno is the very definition of a fangirl. She fawns over Sasuke every minute and hardly cares for anything else. For all her so-called book smarts at the academy, she's not very bright. I hit her with a genjutsu that showed her Sasuke beaten and bloody with the hopes of stunning her long enough to knock her out, but instead she just fainted at the sight of him. In any event, she'll have to get over her infatuation at some point if she wants to be a competent kunoichi. So you got a fool, an avenger, and a fangirl. Looks like you got your work cut out for you. Think you can handle it? Anko said with a smirk. No worse than you probably. Besides, from what I heard, you got a bigger fool than Kiba, Kakashi retorted. Not anymore he isn't, Anko said, her smirk widening. Turning towards the Hokage, Anko began her report. Team 8 passes. Shikamaru may be lazy, but he has potential as an excellent strategist. He may not like putting effort into something, but when pushed, he'll get into action. Hinata has self-esteem and needs some serious backbone, but I think that can be remedied easily enough with Naruto on the team. I wasn't able to test her combat abilities, but they were able to see me coming from a considerable distance, so her Byakugan must have a good range to it. She's definitely got potential. Makes me wonder how much of a dumbass Hayashi must be for not recognizing it. Naruto, well, from what I've seen, I think we may have a second coming of the Yondaime. Kakashi's and Asuma's eyes widened while the latter's father just smiled. This morning, on his way to the training area, he basically invented a low-powered version of Hyrushin. Now the elder Sarutobi's eyes did widen. He calls it Shuinpa. I can explain it later, but basically it's a superpowered chakra jump to move at high speed. He was going so fast I could barely keep up with him. If he can perfect it, I think we may have someone faster than even Guy. Kakashi was now very interested. A jutsu that could potentially allow the user to move that fast. Oh, Guy would love to hear this. Kukukuku. Now if you'll excuse me, Anko said. I have to meet my team for some after-test lunch. Ja, she said as she poofed away. Chapter 6. Threshold. A dark figure sped across the rooftops of Konoha, pursued by 3 others. Target is moving east towards the market, a shy, female voice said over a radio. Understood. I'm on it. Be ready, lazy. Another enthusiastic male voice replied. All right. I'll be ready. Don't worry, said another, far less enthusiastic male voice. The figure ran across the rooftops, intent on evading its pursuers in the crowded marketplace beyond. Its pursuers, one in particular, were far more swift. As it was about to leap off the rooftop and into a crowded market, a red and black flash appeared in front of it. Slitted blue eyes stared down at the frightened creature, freezing it in place with a predatory gleam. The blue-eyed demon licked its fangs as it smirked, as if preparing for a meal. A clawed hand reached out to grab the creature. Tora the cat, regaining its ability to think, turned to run from its pursuer, only to find that task impossible as it could not move. A chuckle sounded from the other end of the roof. Heh, easy as pie. Nice work, Naruto, Shikamaru said, his hands in the familiar sign. His shadow merged with the cat's. I do what I can, Naruto said as he scratched the back of his head. Oh yeah, clawed hands made good scratchers. Don't you think that's a little harsh? Scaring the poor thing like that? Hinata said as she landed on the roof and picked up the cat, Anko sitting in a tree behind her. Hey, it's the only thing that works. Besides, you can calm her down in no time, Naruto replied. And it was true, Anko noted. For some reason, whenever the cat was near Hinata, it would calm down instantly without fail. In fact, the animal seemed to like Hinata, at least a lot more than its owner. Naruto had once suggested Hinata might have an affinity for cats, just like he seemed to have one for foxes, only to be reminded by Anko that Hinata was not a Jinchuriki. As the 4 made their way back to the Hokage Tower to complete their mission, Anko smiled in pride at the near-flawless plan Shikamaru had come up with for capturing the feline that seemed to be a never-ceasing source of frustration for other genin teams. Though Naruto had come up with some rather interesting additions to it. The capture plan was simple. Hinata would find Tora with her Byakugan, then Naruto would catch up to it. No matter how much the cat tried, it just couldn't match the speed generated by Naruto's Shuinpa. At that point, Naruto would paralyze the cat with what he and Anko called a demon stare, which pretty much consisted of Naruto staring down the cat with a sinister glare coupled with a slight amount of killing intent. Pretty much he looked like he was a predator that wanted the cat for its next meal. Those few seconds in which the cat was paralyzed in fear would give enough time for Shikamaru to arrive and trap the cat with his cage mane. Finally, Hinata would perform the actual capture. Anko smiled. Her team was turning out quite all right. Naruto was progressing incredibly well with Shuinpa. He had started wearing weights and doing physical exercises in the mornings to build up his reaction time. This pretty much consisted of him dodging kunai thrown by Anko. They had also been training with controlling more and more of his Yuki. So far, they had gotten him up to the Nibi mode, but Kyuubi had suggested that they hold off on going further until he had absorbed more Yuki. And Anko had the sinking suspicion that her sadistic attitude was rubbing off on Naruto. Shikamaru was also improving greatly, having learned a few of his clan jutsu other than the cage mane, such as the Kagenui. Probably his best improvement was the fact he was slowly becoming less lazy. He still had his laid-back attitude, but he showed more interest in things other than cloud watching and sleeping. Hinata was also improving, mostly in her taijutsu and her Byakugan range. Though training her in Juiken was difficult for Anko due to certain complications. Anko scowled at the memory. Flashback. It was the day that Anko had passed Team 8. Anko and Hinata stood in the main hall of the Hyuga compound. In front of them was Hayashi Hyuga, Hinata's father. The two had come here to discuss Hinata's training, since Anko hardly knew the first thing about Juiken training. Hayashi-sama, Anko said as she bowed. Ota-sama, Hinata said as she did the same. Why have you come here? The Hyuga head asked, venom obvious in his voice. Anko almost scowled. Hayashi was one of those that were less understanding of her situation. In other words, he resented her for the fact that she was Orochimaru's apprentice, and she'd also bet that he resented Naruto as well. We've come here to see about Hinata's training in Juiken, as I am unable to effectively train her in it, Anko said, her head still bowed. It was a simple request, practically obvious. Hinata was a member of the Hyuga, and since Anko was not, then they would have to work up a schedule so that Hinata could train with her team and be trained in Juiken. No. Wait, no? But if we don't come up with a schedule for this, then it'll be a lot harder for her to balance training with her team and Juiken training, Anko said as she looked up, shocked that someone as organized as Hayashi Hyuga would be against such a thing. No. I mean that Hinata will not be trained in Juiken anymore. You may train her on your own as much as you wish. What? Anko yelled, instantly on her feet. Hinata's eyes were wide with shock. But why? She's your daughter, and the heir to the clan if I'm not mistaken. Why not train her in Juiken? Then you are mistaken. On both your points, Hayashi replied. Anko's eyes widened in shock. I no longer consider her to be my daughter, if she can be surpassed by not only her little sister, but also a branch family member. She is no longer heir either. You should be thankful, Hinata, he said, glancing toward his wide-eyed daughter. You will not be banished to the branch family until Hanabi becomes clan head. You should be thankful I have been merciful. Anko was now seriously resisting the urge to beat the man in front of her to a bloody pulp. Even the cursed seal, which was normally quiet unless Orochimaru was around, was pulsing violently in response to her anger. Not only was this man condemning his daughter to pretty much slavery, as well as not even considering her his daughter, he was saying she should be thankful, that he was being merciful, and he even had the gall and cruelty to say it right in front of her. This meeting is over. I have other, more pressing matters to attend to, Hayashi said as he turned to leave. Good, Anko thought. She didn't think she could take any more of this without assaulting the man, which was not something she wanted to do. Going over to Hinata, who seemed to be shivering, she put her hand on her shoulder. Hinata snapped her head around and looked at her sensei. Her eyes filled with shock, disbelief, and betrayal, a look Anko had seen before, when she had looked in a mirror after Orochimaru's betrayal. Let's go. I don't think you have a place here anymore, Anko said, pulling the girl to her feet. What Hayashi had just done to Hinata was exactly what Orochimaru had done to her. It was right then and there that Anko had decided something. Hinata would become strong, stronger than any Hyuga before. She would help her surpass her father's expectations. She would make him regret his actions. End flashback. It had taken a few days before Hinata had recovered completely. Naruto and Shikamaru had been about as pissed as Anko had been after hearing this. Hinata was now spending much of her time at the tower with Anko and Naruto. What troubled Anko was that Hinata had not reacted with any real emotional zeal upon hearing Anko's suggestion on her becoming stronger. She had most certainly agreed to it, but it seemed that she was trapped in that shy demeanor. Anko had wondered why, but hadn't been able to press the issue with the Hokage. On another note, while she and Naruto had become good friends, Hinata still had not been able to convey her feelings to Naruto, nor had Naruto noticed them. This had also confused the Jounin as to why Naruto could be so dense on that issue when he seemed to be so sharp on so many other subjects. She had asked the Hokage about it, and had gotten an interesting and chilling answer. Flashback. Anko stood in the Hokage's office in front of its owner. Yes, Anko. Is there something I can do for you? Well, I was wondering, has anyone ever done a psychological analysis of Naruto? Someone non-biased anyway. Why do ask? Has he been showing any abnormalities in his behavior? The elderly Kage asked. Not really. It's just his interaction with Hinata that's troubling me. Ah, so he still hasn't figured it out yet, has he? And you're confused as to how he could be so dense towards her feelings. Enko nodded. Well, since few years ago, I have had Inoichi Yamanaka do a psychological exam of the boy every year or so to make sure he wasn't going insane from the villagers' treatment. Inoichi would make use of my scrying crystal to monitor Naruto's everyday life and make a report to me about it. About 2 years ago, when I discovered that Hinata seemed to harbor feelings of affection and perhaps even love towards Naruto, I asked Inoichi to look into this as to why Naruto would be ignorant of this when her behavior was so different from that of his other classmates. He was able to develop a theory explaining it, Sarutobi said, pulling a file from his desk and handing it to Anko. Looking inside it, Anko found that it was one of these reports. Apparently, since Naruto has been hated all his life, he has trouble accepting any other feelings towards him. He can't accept that people can feel anything other than hatred for him? Anko said, shocked. Not now. You should have seen him a few years ago before he met Irika. Right now, he has trouble comprehending or realizing any kind of romantic affection. That's why he sees people like me and Irika as family members. Inoichi theorized that he can only realize Hinata's feelings for him if she actually comes out and says it to him. And others informing him of this won't work either. She has to pretty much go up to him and tell him she loves him. And based on Inoichi's observations, I believe he may harbor similar feelings towards her. He either hasn't realized them or thinks she may reject him like Sakura has so many times. It truly is a terrible thing the villagers have done to him, Sarutobi said. His face held low as Anko looked over the report. I understand, Hokage-sama. The Sandaime nodded. I only hope they can realize their feelings for each other. It will make their lives so much better. End flashback. Anko had explained this to Shikamaru, hoping he might have suggestions for getting the two together. He didn't have anything. She had decided to let things run their course and hopefully, Hinata would build up the courage to confess her feelings. Anko was broken from her musings when Naruto spoke up. Hey Anko-sensei. When are you going to let us do any C-rank missions? We're all tired of these D-ranks. What? We've only been doing these for a week. You want a higher mission already? Besides, you pretty much have stuff like this down. I know we can catch this cat easily now, and that's why we want a better mission. It's not a challenge anymore, Naruto said, Shikamaru and Hinata nodding in agreement. I don't know. Maybe you still need a little more dash. I'll give you Shuinpa lessons. Deal. Team 8 stood in the mission room in front of the Hokage. So, you think you're ready for a C-rank mission, eh? Sarutobi asked. Hi. I believe that my team is ready for a C-rank mission, Hokage-sama, Anko replied, the 3 genin behind her nodding in agreement. Very well, come in Idate-san.